Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV. Today, we have a lot to talk about. I have a lot of feels, I have a lot of emotions, I have a lot of thoughts, and we're going to get to that, right? But it is a call-in day today, right? Because I know that you, dear viewer, you, my audience, also have big thoughts, big emotions, big feels. There's been a lot. It's been a lot. And I think we need a chance to talk about it, to discuss it, to express ourselves, right? Um, and I wanted to offer my space for you to be able to express yourself. Um, we are joined today by 𝕍𝖎. Say hello, Zephyr.
Hey, I'll be the eye candy for tonight.
There you are, right? Like I only bring on the hotties to my stream, okay? So that's what I've been accused of. But Zephyr here, I guess, is not helping me beat those accusations. Let's say that. Um, it's I just I'm struggling. I'm struggling with how to begin this. I'm struggling with how to start this because I have been I have been disappointed. Um, and I am growing angry at all that has happened in the last 3, 4 days. Uh, when I saw the news and I saw those videos come up on my timeline, and that's how it happened. Like I was really scrolling through Twitter, and suddenly my timeline was full of horror uh, videos that I can't even begin to describe. Blood, uh, things, death. I have no words. And to see after the people run cover and excuse that kind and justify in many cases that kind of atrocity has again first disappointed me, and now I am becoming more and more angry as we go and as I go. I am angry that the people who for years have called everyone to the right of them Nazis, fascists, etc., sit by and either say nothing or they give the most milk toast, like, oh, yeah, that's bad, but have you heard about Israel, gang? Or they do this thing where they justify it like, oh, what did you think decolonization would look like? I am angry at that. I don't think that it is um, unwarranted. I do not think that it is um, unfair. I know that we shouldn't let emotions dictate our behaviors, and so I've been trying not to do that. But I am emotional, right? It does matter to me. And if you are sitting there in your homes and behind your screens and at your keyboards and you see all this and it doesn't awaken some sort of emotion in you, I question um, your humanity. I do. Um, Tonight we're going to be talking about it. Tonight we're going to be taking calls about it. And you can feel free to express your thoughts, your emotions, what you see as the truth. I will allow you that space. I hope that we can just recognize and remember the people who gave half-assed responses to this or very horrific responses to this. I hope we don't forget them. I hope we remember the next time they complain that someone is mean to them on Twitter, right? And they talk about how horrific it was for them to be called a mean name or something on Twitter. And then we can just point to their response to, I think the body count's over 1,000 now, right? On Israel's side alone, right? Not to mention the hundreds that are being decimated by Israel in a horrific manner, right? Like there are lives lost on both sides, and that makes this situation even more horrific. I hope we remember them, and I hope we take them as seriously as they've shown themselves to be. That is all. Okay, with that, gang, it's call-ins. So we're going to take some call-ins. I know y'all are in there. You're waiting to come on. So we're going to bring you in, and feel free to express your piece. If you disagree with me, disagree with me. That's fair. That's fine. Let's bring in the first caller. You're live. Oh, no, he's deafened. Come on. Are you there? Are you there?
Oh, shit, that's me.
It is
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I didn't.
Uh-oh, you cut out. You still there?
Just digging with my audio for a
Okay,
second.
take your time.
Didn't
take your
realize I
time.
was going to be first. My bad.
It's all good. What you got for us? What are your thoughts? Well, okay, great, wonderful. We can't hear you at all now if you're speaking. So,
No, I think I fixed it.
okay, go ahead. You're live. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Well, no. So I mean, again, I didn't realize I was going to be first, but a lot of things you've been saying, Wick, over the past couple of days have been resonating with me in a particularly important way. There's a couple of things that I think maybe people are not kind of there's a lot, I guess. Sorry, I'm struggling with words, and I think for understandable reasons, but there's this analog to 9/11 that people keep pointing to, and I think there's a lot to be said here on kind of both sides of this thing, but not maybe necessarily what people are expecting. So the kind of the first thing that strikes me as obvious that I think you've also pointed to is the absolute tone deafness of saying, "Oh, well, but Israel did bad things," in the immediate aftermath of a terrorist attack. That when you think about Afghanistan and Iraq and the legacy of the U.S. wars in the Middle East, we're talking about a sort of a building and a boil up of criticism, and some of it was very fair right from the get go. Right, that it's not to imply that it had to sort of boil up over time, but just that in the immediate moment when the United States had just experienced the terrorist attacks of 9/11, that invasion of Afghanistan was something that, for the most part, the international community not only didn't object to, but for the most part rallied behind. And it seems a little bit weird here that we've got a situation where Israel has been attacked in a terrorist fashion, and I feel like I have to immediately pivot and give the whole, well, I'm not talking about Palestinian civilians, and that's part of what makes this conversation so complicated and so difficult, is that there is this whole broad swath of people, call them the left, call them whatever you want, I don't care. I don't care about that. I care more about the people who are dying and who are in a war zone. um, but we have this whole swath of people that are like, well, let's just make excuses for this terrorist action, and kind of
we can talk about the horrors of Israeli colonization and their settlement policy and how the horrific conditions in Gaza have led rise to many deaths, right? We can talk about that. That's fine. But let the bodies fucking cool, okay? Let them cool.
Exactly. Does it have to be the day after it happened that we have this conversation, or can we all condemn the violence first, please?
Israel is one of the most condemned nations on earth, right? Israel has been for years, for decades, condemned internationally, condemned domestically, condemned over and over. We have talked about this and talked about this and talked about this. We have condemned the atrocities that they have committed when they have done their war crimes. We've condemned them over and over and over. And the minute that we see Hamas, not Palestinians, but Hamas go in and slaughter and butcher over 1,000 people, if the only thing you can do in that case is try to genuflect with Israel bad, then you can fuck right off. Okay, like you can fuck right off. We don't need you here. Like you are a literal monster. I won't beat around the bush. I'm not gonna do it.
Thank you, Wick. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
But anyway,
I need to say that. It's good to hear people say that because it is absolutely disgusting to see, as you put it, the genuflection of like, oh, well, but this thing, um, it doesn't make that thing invalid.
It's as if right after George Floyd had gotten murdered. Right after George Floyd got murdered, someone come up to you, but what about all the white people who got shot? Yeah, we know. That's a problem. But maybe wait a minute, okay? Maybe take a second. Jesus Christ, I am livid about this. Zephyr, get in here before I scare off all my audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it is important to, while acknowledging the tragedy, we can acknowledge that in this particular case, we might be picking one side, but that might not define our morality. That might not give us the whole view. Hey, are we pro-Israel or pro-Palestine? It can be that we are pro-Palestine overall, but in this particular case, we are pro-Israel. Or sorry, let me rephrase: pro-Hamas or whatever, right? And yeah, again, I don't think anyone should be forcing anyone to pick any sides. I think people should be given time to research this issue and come up with their own conclusions as well.
I agree. I'm not asking you to be okay with Israel, right? Me saying, hey, Hamas is a terrorist organization that needs to go, isn't saying I love Israel, Israel's great. That's not it. Like, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Don't use fan fiction to put your own thoughts in there, right? Look, Israel is a problem, but Hamas has gotta go. It's gotta go. Now, what I think the response is horrific right now. What Netanyahu's doing with like the just bombing and turning into dirt. One, it's not going to work overall, I don't think. And two, it's just going to create more problems. It's horrific. There's horrors being done right now from Israel's side to Palestine. It absolutely is.
We should probably get into that too, because this is another this is another area where there is just this like disgusting one-sided argument from the left, and that like what I can't stand about this is, and I can't remember who I've seen say it. Maybe it was you, Wick. It may have been, but it might have been somebody else. But basically that like, oh, these anti-fascists are against all the fascists except their own fascists, and one of the things that absolutely blows my mind here is that if you want to compare the tactics, right? We need to kind of.
Oh, let me correct myself then. If you think I'm suggesting Israel is as bad as Hamas, you're wrong, right? Hamas is infinitely worse.
No,
okay.
But we
can't excuse, like, choosing the lesser evil is still evil. It's still the lesser evil, right? What Israel is doing right now is the lesser evil, but it's still evil, and we have to condemn it.
Yes.
But Hamas, we can recognize that, like, there is a difference between the callous disregard of human life when bombing things and civilians getting killed as collateral damage and not taking enough steps to stop that. And then, let me finish, and then people who only bomb military targets so that they can get to the juicy, gooey center of the civilians in there and rape and murder them. Like, there's that. These are not the same. Let's stop conflating that right off the bat. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're okay. Just I'm gonna take an even stronger stance than I think you just did. That I think there is not even remotely a moral equivalence here, and I want to kind of give a couple of points, if I may, to illustrate what I'm talking about here. That when we're talking about, I think it's obvious if you're kind of paying attention to things and not, falling into somebody's narrative circle or like some conspiracy theory or whatever, it seems pretty obvious that the objective here was to obtain hostages, and that the purpose of obtaining the hostages was to obtain a hostage exchange, right? That you would get Hamas people out of Israeli prisons in exchange for these civilians that they have captured. And that the idea is, hey, you don't attack us because we're not going to kill the civilians. We want our people back. You give us our people back, we'll give you the hostages. But that Israel at least as far as it seems from my external perspective, Israel is basically telling them, fuck you, we're going to take the hostages back and you can, deal with what you just brought. But more importantly, the sort of pivot point, if you will, has to do with the element of targeting. That when you're dealing with a situation where somebody is deliberately putting civilians between them and your cannons, that there is a limit to what you can do to prevent absolutely every single civilian from taking damage. And that doesn't make it good. And again, I think you've said that, right? I think we're all in agreement there. Nobody wants any civilians to die. The problem becomes that when you look at the comparison between the two, right? The Hamas militants come across the border, they deliberately target civilians. They open air raid shelters and spray them. They leave pools of blood in their aftermath by targeting people who are deliberately trying to signal, like, we are desperately trying to avoid conflict. We're civilians, leave us alone, please. They open the doors and just mow them down. By contrast, you're seeing the Israeli army, and this doesn't get a lot of press coverage, and this is where I'm getting a little frustrated, right? That it's easy to just have a feels take, but if you look at what's actually happening, they're putting out pressers. They're putting out information. They're saying, hey, if you are a Gaza civilian, here is how you evacuate. Come to this location. We will help you get out of the area. There are specific instructions that have been provided to Gazans to get them out of conflict. And you can make whatever statements you want to make about, like, how sincere they are, or like, oh, they're just going to treat them poorly or whatever. But at that point, you're talking about something hypothetical. You're talking about something that hasn't happened yet. And when we're talking about people who are likely to die, the Israelis are saying, hey, do this and we will help you get the hell out of the firing line. And
Well, sorry to interrupt, but what
no,
makes
go
this issue
go.
much more complicated is, from the Palestinian perspective, Hamas, you can call them freedom fighters, you can call them all sorts of pro-Palestine rhetoric you want to give them, and it has been observed that terrorists often hide in people's houses. They are not only they don't only hide there; they're protected by the people who live in that house. People will claim that, hey, they're my cousins, they're my brother, they're just over here to stay for a bit, while actively engaging, or not actively, but passively engaging in terrorist activities. And this issue becomes much more complicated from Israel's point of view, who primarily want to target Hamas, but there's a bunch of civilians who are standing in between them and the actual active terrorist.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's not as easy as asking people, hey,
It's
just go to the
it's
Gaza,
incredibly hard. No, I
yeah,
agree. It's
just go to this
incredibly hard.
location and hope that everybody feels
No.
anti-Hamas enough to.
But the,
I don't want to imply that I'm saying, like, Israel is, like, clean hands or whatever. That's not the implication. Just that if you look at tactics, right? If you look at what they are trying to do, one side is saying, "Hey, come here, we will try to protect you." The other side is saying, "Hey, if you go to a bomb shelter, we're gonna gun you down." Like, those are pretty significant differences in tactics. And I think that that's something that is being dramatically underplayed here when we talk about this, because when we talk about innocent Palestinians, we're talking about people who are not taking guns to other parts of the country and gunning down people in bomb shelters, right?
I do
Like,
have to drop out for a couple minutes. I'll be right back.
okay. Um, thank you for calling in. Anything else? Because we do got a bit of a line forming. I wanted to give you your fair shake. So last thoughts. Last thoughts.
Last thoughts. That I think it's absolutely disgusting that people are sort of positing this as the women and children thing. And I want to be specific. I think when you target children, everyone can agree that that's a horrible thing to do because children are innocent. Like,
Yes.
what the fuck did a child do to you?
Yes.
But the women and children thing is a little bit weird because when we're talking about civilians, we're kind of implicitly saying like, hey, it's cool to just kill men. Like, it's fine. Like, there's something weird about that I think doesn't get talked about enough. That when we look at a situation like this where it's actually fucking happening, where people are kind of implicitly justifying, well, I mean, it was okay to kill some of those people. That's really kind of weird because they're like nominally on the side of don't kill people, but they're still kind of
I
giving
get
this
you.
weird space. Yeah,
I get
it's
you.
just weird.
I'm not gonna judge two people too harshly for that, honestly. But I understand it's worth talking about. My anger is not towards them; it is towards the people who are like, "What did you think this decolonization would look like?" and the weirdos who are like, "Well, if indigenous people came to kill me, I'd be okay with it. It would suck, but I would be a justified target." That's weird. That's what. Okay. Anyway, thank you for coming on. We're gonna send you the void. Bye. I got a lot of thoughts on this. I am sorry, gang. This is going to be Wick rants a lot during your call-in. I apologize. But yes, again, we have to keep in mind both sides are bad, but one side, at least in this, is infinitely worse. Okay, if Israel put down its arms today, what do you think would happen to them? That's the question I have. If I want you to really seriously think about that. If Israel just opened up its borders, let everyone out, everyone in their populace, lay down its arms, what would happen? I want you to think about that. Let's bring on the next caller. Hello.
He's also definitely.
Oh, of course he is. Well, they're waiting their turn, right? They don't wanna hear the chatter
Believe,
backstage, right? They want to hear the hey, what's up?
Apologize about that.
It's okay. What you got?
Um, so this is obviously tough, but so what do you what would you think that the outcome of uh, a 50-year oppression of a nation state over another like semi-nation state, but like so basically what I'm thinking is the only way this is going to end is until one side completely annihilates the other. Like this is gotten to a point where there pretty much isn't a resolution. There's no resolution for this. Like um what you were just saying about Israel laying down their guns. Is nobody's saying that? I don't think anybody's asking for that. What people are, what the left has been
So
screaming for the last,
even if they kept their
for as long as
guns, even if they
yeah.
kept their guns, okay? Israel opens the borders to Gaza today. Opens the borders to the West Bank, opens the borders, right, and just lets everyone in. Right? They keep their guns and stuff. Do you think that what do you think will happen? What do you how do you see it playing out at least in the the short term? What do you see happening?
Well, it completely depends on how they do it. If they, you know, if they try to treat the Palestinian, like if they literally just try to treat the Palestinian people like with any form of dignity and respect, while maintaining whatever police state they want, um, I, yeah, I mean, maybe find a way to lock Hamas up, all the terrorists, find a way to, you know, eradicate them, and then yeah, then you got to work with the rest of the population. But I, I I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's possible. I mean,
Well, I mean, we're dancing around it, but let's be clear. What would happen is they would be like there would be a huge spike in killings and death. Like that would
what
it
is
would
this?
it would.
What is this? Would it be this? This is a huge spike in killings and death. That's what this is,
So
There would
right?
be
why
more. I
would we
This
guess
is.
there
want
would.
more
You
of
think
it?
so? No, I don't. No, 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 no. This is what I don't want. I don't want this.
Okay,
You
so
know,
what
I don't want this.
I don't want it either. No one wants this that is sane, right? There are some insane people out
Okay,
there
but
who are cheering
you're
this on,
screaming at the
but
you're
neither of us.
screaming at you're screaming at people like, oh, you're fucking retarded if you say if you say that, you know, Palestine, if you say free Palestine, or if you say anything in support of Palestine, like
When did I
like
say that? What I said was, and I want to be very clear, that after the murder of over 900, I think it's over 1,000 now, over 1,000 civilians, if the very next day you go out and cheer on Palestine, yes, something's off, right?
no,
You don't
something's not
what
no.
what?
Well, okay, so if you've been paying attention, so all right, basically, so Palestinians should
So
just
Black Lives Matter released a
lube
poster
up, take it.
today
No, no,
with a
no,
hang
no.
glider, a silhouette of a hang glider holding a Palestinian flag. What do you think they were suggesting?
Okay, wait, a Black Live one person was doing
The
something
account, the
crazy.
official
Okay,
account, right? They released
uh-huh.
that poster, right, of a hang glider, silhouette of a hang glider saying "Free Palestine," holding a Palestinian flag. What do you think that was suggesting?
It's a reference to 9/11, and like, well, it could be, a hang glider. I have to see it, but when I'm
Okay,
thinking
I
a
will
hang
show you
glider
it.
flies.
I will DM it to you.
Hmm.
You do know, right? In the attack a couple days ago, that
I'm not here to defend
I
anybody
understand, but
defending Hamas.
I'm just saying to you, and because you are acting as if I'm out of pocket by being mad at these people, but these people are not just uh, a minority fringe. They are in positions of power amongst radical groups and in groups that we would otherwise, call leftists that again have not just run cover in many cases, not just stayed silent in other cases, but in some cases, like this one, actively celebrated it. And I think that it is not
I
out of
understand.
pocket. It's
No,
not
no,
inappropriate
wait.
to not only note that and point it out, but to express horror and condemnation of that. That is not
Got you.
something any group should do. It's as if, right? Um, sorry, I'm getting emotional. I apologize, but I
Hmm.
am an emotional person. I won't apologize too much for that.
Emotion, passion. What's the difference?
And passion is an emotion, but yes. But do you understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to communicate. Like that's the most important thing. Do you
I
understand
guess
why I'm
Yes,
angry?
I
yes,
have
yes,
a
yes. You're
question also.
disgusted. You're disgusted at the people who are by any support of Palestine right at this moment is is support of what happened over the last few days to the Israeli people. You're disgusted at that, and you're disgusted to even be associated with any uh, type of people like that. You're disgusted as
Yes.
a centrist leftist. Yes, you're
No, as a
disgusted to be
human,
around these folks.
not as a political guy, but as a like
Yes.
that
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
as a human being, I am disgusted that people can justify murder and rape of civilians. Yes, absolutely. You won't catch me doing that. You won't
Okay.
catch me
You keep saying
excusing
that.
it.
You keep saying that. Okay. The rape part. The rape part. If you asked, if you asked any leftist, was the rape part necessary, or do they condone that, or would they have advised that, or would they have did that if they were Hamas troops? I'm hoping it'd
Okay,
be
what about the
95 to
murder
99%.
part? Do you condone, excuse, or advise them? Because you say that about the rape, right? That no
Uh
leftist
huh.
would justify that. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Let's leave that out. Let's keep to
Hmm.
the murder part. Do you think that there are leftists who would advise, condone, or cheer that on?
I think you're honestly crazy if you think that there's no situation where a human being would condone murder.
On civilians?
Um, well, okay. If you put it like that, like, no, but if you
Okay,
put it
but
in the
that's what they
context of
did.
the situation, then I think people not justify, like, okay,
What
so if there
context?
was
No, let
another
me ask
way, if
clearly.
there
Let
was,
me ask
if
clearly.
people could see, another way for Palestine to free themselves, right? If the people could imagine a different way besides what's been going on for the last 50 years, if people could imagine a different way. Now, in my heart of hearts, I think Palestine, Hamas just fuck Palestine. I think they are going to get annihilated, and I think that's what they just did. Now, but in people's heart of hearts, would they want a different way of a revolution, or for Palestine to quote unquote free themselves? I don't know how this is freeing themselves. Um, yeah, but it's so difficult because if you zoom out, right? If you zoom out, this is just another escalation in what's been
So,
going on. And
Philly, I have
go
a
ahead. Yes,
question. I have a question.
yes,
Sorry,
yes,
I'm
yes, yes,
not
yes, yes.
educated on this issue, but do you know off the top of your head the last time Palestine called for a peaceful negotiation between Israel and itself?
A real one? No.
Okay, I
Uh,
have not heard of anything either. So I think it is
There have been calls to talk.
difficult.
Look, to just to fact check you guys, like there,
Mm.
look, in 2020, 2021, IDF had a line to Hamas. They would communicate. There was open lines of communication, right? There was discussion. They had the war in 2014, or the conflict in 2014. There was the Oslo Accords back in the 90s that got sunk, unfortunately.
how?
There
How
was
did
a
they get sunk?
unilateral withdrawal in
How did the
2006.
Oslo Accords get sunk?
There was I'm not educated enough on the specifics of that event.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to quiz you. I
I
thought you knew and
understand,
you're
but that was
avoiding
you were
answering.
just asking when was the times that they've discussed peace. That was the time they've
Got you.
discussed peace.
Got you.
I know it was vetoed, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
That's a silly way to say it, but there
All
was
right. So.
a monstrous attacks. But let me just ask, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because you said we can put this in context, and I want to go back to that for a moment. Give me a context, a hypothetical context, right, that you would say that gunning down 260 people at a rave would be okay, justified.
Never.
Okay, see, it's easy. It's easy. That's what Hamas
Yeah.
did. That's one of the things
Yes.
they did. They came in,
Hamas
they
is
hang glided
is
in to the rave,
yes.
and they gunned down over 260 people
Yes.
and took a bunch
Yes.
captive.
Yes. And
No,
Hamas
that's
is
all you
a
have to
horrible.
say. No
Yeah.
justification. It was bad. But it's so hard for people to say that for some reason. Not you, but others. There have been
Yeah.
others who struggle. And it makes me one. I don't think it's unfair to ask why.
Okay. Here's why. Because leftists, a lot of people on the left have been screaming at the top of their lungs for what seems like as long as I've been alive, for Palestine to be freed, whatever that means or looks like. The UN, the American people, everybody is sort of warmed up to Israel. You can look at Israel's acceptance rates, the way people feel about Israelis, the way people feel about Palestinians. You can look at it in the U.S. and you can look at it in the world. So people are starting to care less and less and less and less and less about Palestine. And then the reality is Israel is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. They have, a decades-long plan of how they plan to literally like eradicate the Palestinian people. So it's like what you're suggesting, or not what you're suggesting. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the alternative to what is happening now is the people of Palestine might as well just lube up, find the biggest dildo they have, put some spikes on it, and just let Israel fuck them up the ass as hard as they can, because that's what's happening and that's what's going to continue to happen. Unfortunately, I think this is going to expedite the process. This is people are calling Hamas a terrorist group. Judging by their actions the last few days, I can't argue with that. They are horrible representations for Palestine. I don't think they're helping the people of Palestine at all. And this is, we're going to go in the next 2 months, you're going to start hearing about the atrocities that the Israeli people are doing to the Palestinian people again. So just before I get out of here, I just want to be quick, like,
Please.
or clear. Excuse
Last
me. I
thoughts.
want to be very clear, very clear. I'm not here to defend Hamas. I'm here to maybe help you try to understand why people are there's this knee-jerk reaction on by everybody, because this has been bubbling under the surface for 25, 30, 40, 50 years, and it exploded. And people are going to have their feelings, and I understand people are going to get emotional, whatever. um Hamas is terrible. Fuck them. I wish they were clear about who they were. Maybe they were. I think when the Israeli
Well,
or when the Palestinian,
Hamas, it was in their charter until 2017 that they wanted to eradicate every single Jew in Israel.
okay,
That was their
okay,
stated goal.
okay, I'll take that back. Maybe the Palestinian people knew exactly who Hamas was, but so yeah, this is just I would it. It's fucked up because yeah, it's just going to lead to the eradication of the Palestinian people, and that's going to lead to more war because you got more Muslims than just the Palestinians. And at the end of the day, this really is a religious conflict, and yeah, people are going to pick their religious sides. All right, let me get out of here.
Okay, Billy,
Yep.
thank you for
Take
calling
care.
in. I
Mm-hmm.
would ask one thing of you, right?
Yep.
In the future, just read up a little bit, right, on this, because I think that like there's a lot of misinformation about there. There's a lot of propaganda out there, on both sides, and you really need to kind of broaden, um,
I try. So here's the
I know
thing.
it's
Here's the
hard, but
thing.
it's immensely
Here's the thing
complex.
about
It's
trying to
very, very hard, right?
reading up on it. Yeah. Yes. And then people are so dug in. People had their heels dug in so far, and everything is biased. It's very hard to get it like straight down the middle. What's happening? You got all your pro-Palestinian groups, all your pro-Israel groups, all this. Um, influencing in that way. So I do try to read up. So what I'm speaking about right now is very basic stuff. I am a little
Mhm.
tiny bit read up. I mean, I know what's going on, but um, I really didn't want to talk to you about the nuance of the situation. I
I
wanted to
got you.
talk to you about like our reactions to it, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I'm not here
I
to
get you. I
debate
get
the
you.
conflict. I'm not here to like debate the nuances
I
of the
understand. Well,
conflict.
even the
Yeah,
reaction is mystifying to me. Again, if you could see 1,000 people dying, and I'll give it like it's like if a black guy gets shot, and then people start coming up to you and asking about what about all the white guys who've been shot. I mean, yes, we know that happens, but this just happened. Let's deal with this now, okay? Like it gives very much that energy when people come in and are like, "What about Israel? What about Israel? What about Israel?" That's the kind of energy it's giving me. So yeah.
right. No, but you're a smart guy. I'm just you're saying that people who have a certain opinion are retarded, and you can have that opinion. I just I'm not here to say that they're not or defend anybody. I just want to just give you just
Okay,
like I can see where certain people
I
are
get
coming
you.
from. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's all. Yeah.
I will see
All
you
right.
later, buddy. Bye.
Yep.
You okay, Zephyr?
I'm hanging in there.
Good, good. It's it's gonna go like this today, gang. It's gonna go like this today. Again, I I think that, and this is me speculating. I may be entirely off base, but I think a lot of people are under ideological capture, right? They've chanted "Free Palestine" as a slogan for so long that they feel that they've ingested it as their identity, and so when this event happens, it is earth shattering, right? And shows clearly Hamas as monsters, right? They feel like this instinctive knee-jerk reaction to defend it because they have internalized it for some reason. And so it's catching some of them off guard, and some of the less smart ones are just knee-jerking. Um and yeah, that's exactly what I think is happening. It's speculation though. I'm just guessing. So anyway, let's bring on the next caller. Oh, geez, there's a lot of you now. We're gonna go at random. You're live. What's up? You're live. We can't hear you. Oh well, he just left. Okay.
I think they accidentally.
Oh well, we'll get to him again. Hi, you're live. Beautiful. Wonderful. I'm glad everyone's ready. I'm glad everyone's prepared.
if
You
you're
got
in backstage
you got
and
10
are
seconds, buddy.
ready to call in, then DM me and I'll request Vic to pull you in.
10, 9, 8,
Oh,
7,
I see the mute button
6,
going on and off.
5. He's trying to fix it. 4, 3. Okay, sorry, buddy. Fix it and we'll get to you.
Let's get Admiral Gibbs in there.
Admiral Gibbs is ready? Okay.
Yep.
What up? You're live.
How you doing? Let me just mute this. All right, so I gotta say, I actually kind of agree with you, except for and I've sat here this whole time, and I'm not gonna get into. I've already said, and I know it's well documented. I think that terror tactics and all that. But I will say this. I think that it's very much fallen along ideological lines, and I poo-poo on the conservatives that are my friends that have sat here and said crocodile tears about these Israelis. Y'all don't give a shit. The only reason why you're just sitting here going here, oh, we need to wipe out Palestine, is because it's best in America's interest and it's best along party lines. And y'all's excuses for why this is like why we should do this are really weak. And I've seen it over and over again from people I really respected, and they're like, yeah, we need to glass them, and I'm just like. This is you're just sitting here repeating regurgitating
Oh yeah,
like
and
lines.
I want to be clear. Anyone who's saying like glass Gaza or anything like that, any of that horrific shit, can also get the fuck out, right? Like that is horrific. That again, we're not gonna. Yeah, what are you doing? You're gross and you're disgusting. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, it's really crazy to me because each side is really trying to take this moralistic high point while sitting there simultaneously justifying war crimes. Right. Like, we're not trying to justify these war crimes in the sense of, oh, this is a conflict, like we're fighting. They're literally trying to morally justify heinous acts. Like, they're not going, oh, well, Hamas did this to do this plan, to do this plan. They're going, oh, no, the murder of those children, the rape of those women, the killing of those kids was justified. And then they're turning right around, they're saying, oh, well, everything Israel does is justified. And like it's just crazy to me that they can sit here and just blanket statement. Like people in general can just blanket state in this when this goes back 4,000 years like of just back and forth on this issue. And like we're gonna just sit here and like act like they don't have an ulterior motive, which is like okay, America first. I would much rather have these people be honest and just say I'm back in Israel because they're America's ally, as opposed to oh yeah, let me just make these crocodile tears for the people at that rave. Like they don't care.
It's
They don't care.
it's a function of ideologue brain, right? And this is on both sides, right? This is for both extremes have this. Even some people in the middle have this, right? This ideological knee-jerk reaction that we have to take the stance that my side takes, and we can't have any nuance or any discussion or anything like that back. Like you aren't going to sit here. A lot of people, I've gotten a lot of new followers on Twitter, okay? I've gotten a lot of new followers on Twitter over this. I'm going to lose those followers when they start to recognize that I'm mad when civilians die consistently. That I'm mad when all civilians die, and it's a consistent thing. So they're probably gonna be taken a little back a little bit when they see me be just as angry, just as horrified, just as disgusted when the footage, the war crimes that Israel might commit start rolling in. Right? They're gonna take a like, oh shit, this guy, I thought he was just on our team. No, I'm not on your team. I'm not in your cult. Go away, right? Like, go away. I'm not in your cult. If you kill civilians, if you kill children, you are disgusting, and I don't care who you are or what side you support. That's all.
I sit here and it's just like the consistency issue is a problem that I'm having with this, right? People are sitting here and they're like, "Oh yes, I'm the moral party." Like I mean, and I'm speaking mainly about the conservatives right now because I am one, and that's kind of what my feed has looked like. They're like, "Oh, this is justified for whatever." I'm just like, how do you sit here and consistently say, "Oh, this is justified. Let's commit these war crimes, these atrocities," and then turn right around and go, "Poo poo, Palestine bad." Like that's bullshit, and you know it. And like, I mean, have some consistency. Like, like you're saying, you're saying in general, if you kill civilians, you don't agree with it, you disavow it, etc. But like, I'm just seeing the flip and flopping, like left and right on this issue, and it's really hard for me to take some of these people that I followed and I've like worked with and talked to for years serious on this shit because I'm just sitting here and they're just like rah 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 rah
A
with
lot
like
of people, yeah, a lot of people are telling on themselves. A lot of people are, as I said at the beginning of this, there are people who again, have called me fascist, a fascist enabler, have called me a Nazi, have called me a Nazi sympathizer, have said that I'm upholding systems of oppression, etc., etc., etc. And they are eerily silent when you have crowds in the middle of Australia, thousands of people chanting "Gas the Jews" over and over. And they say, either they say nothing, or worse, they say, well, I understand because look at what Israel did to Palestine. Really? It's the same old song and dance that people have used to justify their anti-Semitism for since time began. They deserved it. Look what they did to us. We have to do it to them. Over and over and over again. Tale as old as time, broskies. There, a lot of people have told them themselves. A lot of people have
And
told them themselves. And we
this
won't forget.
issue,
Go on.
this issue of consistency that Admiral Gibbs has brought up really reflects how much, especially when it comes to international affairs, how much we are influenced by propaganda and media in general. Like I was discussing this with Wick backstage. 100,000 people had to evacuate Azerbaijan 2 hours before Hamas attacked. 100,000 people had to evacuate the Karabakh region in Azerbaijan and move to Armenia. Now, it's a very complicated issue. Armenia is also not completely innocent in this. They took that region by force. But I haven't heard any discussion on Twitter or even in media on that. Everything I know is just a couple of headlines, and I had to look it up myself.
No, Hamas didn't. Hold on to chat. Hamas didn't attack there. It's the Armenian kind of. There's a conflict in Armenia going around where I can't. I'm sorry. One group of people is forcefully expelling another group of people. Is basically what's happening. And I don't know the details on that enough to weigh in too much. But yeah, it's unconnected. It's unconnected from this conflict. So
just to close out my point, I was trying to point out how much we are just influenced by media on what issues we should care about and what sides we should take. Obviously, we are still whatever side the chat wants to take, you want to take, that is your decision. However, I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that we aren't making these decisions purely by our own moral compass. We are being heavily influenced by what we watch.
Last thoughts before I let you go, Mr. Admiral?
Yeah, I mean, I just really just don't drink the Kool-Aid is kind of my thinking. I think he brought up a really good point just now, and which is, it's not really talked about these other groups and stuff. Like we didn't really see the outrage over the Kurds and this. We didn't see the outrage with, what you were just discussing. You didn't see the outrage with the Yazidis. I'm sure I said that with ISIS. Like you didn't see these things, and really don't drink the Kool-Aid because a lot of this just seems like anti-Semitism and anti-Palestine hate, just like disguised as political takes and them being able to justify their like desire to have ethnic cleansing on either.
Is simply the fact that in this case, you have again something that honestly, this is why I'm so passionate about this one, is because this is one of those things that I thought everyone everywhere universally would condemn it just straight up. It wouldn't be a problem. That would be like, oh my God, this is horrific. I condemn it. That would have been just the line across the board. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I am naive. Maybe I am a retard, right? Like people say. Because that's what I legitimately thought. Like, how can anyone look at this and justify it? Like, obviously it's going to be condemned. I saw on my feed initially, this viewpoint I had was sustained because initially, a lot of people who I follow who are very level-headed, anti-Israel types, right, who are very much against the state of Israel, very much pro-Palestine, were condemning this outright, like saying nothing justifies this. This is a horror. We condemn it. We disavow across the board, right? And then you had other takes start to sneak out and snake up, and my faith was badly damaged by everything that happened. It was, and still to this day, and as time goes on, we will see more and more of that, right? More and more people take they'll say these things. They'll say, well, it wasn't really that bad. The Israeli propaganda played it up. They'll say things like, well, Israel actually was causing this, and so you shouldn't blame Palestinians or Hamas at all for this. They'll say that. They'll say, you know what? This happens worse in Palestine every day. They'll say things like that, right? That's why I think that people should look at the videos and the photos and the live streams that Hamas themselves released. Um, Even though these things are horrors, they're horrors. It will scar you. They will keep you up at night. It is our duty to bear witness, because in the coming days, people will lie to you and try to gaslight you that this didn't happen or this was just propaganda. Do not let them. You need to bear witness. It is the least we owe. Anyway, who's ready? Who's ready?
OG Linux was next. Who DM'd me?
Okay.
I believe it's OG Linux or OG Linux.
𝕵𝖎𝖏, you're live. What's up?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey.
My take's pretty simple. I am an archivist, so I like to just basically document and keep historical record. And my take is, I don't think that people should be the judge or jury in a lot of cases, or in most, if all cases. I think that they should be the defender or prosecutor. In that, I don't think that people should make judgments themselves. I think that they should try to present the context of any situation in its fullest, so that history can be the judge, if that makes sense, or so that people can like have a better opinion rather than just seeing what's on their feed and then making an assumption from that.
Can you maybe rephrase this, because I'm struggling to understand? Are you saying, and I don't know if you are, I legit don't know. Are you saying that people should withhold like any kind of response to things and simply, if an event like this happens, simply provide the context? Here's why this probably happened in XYZ.
No. So my stance is that terrorism and atrocities should never be committed. I think that's a pretty easy stance to have. I think that it's a
Yeah.
pretty easy response to have whenever there's death and destruction. And I think it's very hypocritical for anybody to say that they're against death and destruction and then in any other context warrant it. I think if it's wrong in any context, it should be wrong in most contexts. What I'm saying though is, rather than people jumping on judgments and taking sides, I think that they should have personal opinions, obviously, but I think that rather than expressing their personal opinions to the rest of the world, I think that they should try to present as much context for the rest of the world. So, like, for example, when this first broke out, rather than me saying, okay, well, Palestine's wrong or Israel's wrong, all I did was tried to collect as much information. I saved as many videos as I possibly can. And as more information came out, then I realized, okay, this is much worse than just whatever propaganda is typically propagated. This is actually a horrible instance. I am absolutely against this. A very easy take to have. Rather than saying, the first video I saw to give context was a tank explosion, which was blown
with
up by
the
a
drone drop the bomb thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
So I thought it was just another skirmish. And then I started seeing actual kidnappings occur, and the gravity really hit me when I saw the video of the poor woman being dragged out of the back of the Jeep and she was very clearly raped.
Yes.
And so I think from that point, like, it's very easy to condemn. And I think the problem is not that people are taking sides, it's that people are now justifying the very thing that they would stand against literally not even a week ago. And what I've seen on Twitter, which I just recently started on, I'm not a Twitter person, but I found it interesting to
I'm
see.
sorry for your loss of innocence.
Oh no,
Go ahead.
2017, the Cambridge Analytica really knocked me off social media. But what I found interesting is the responses of our politicians, particularly the ones who are typically the very, very vocal rhetoric around our policies and things like that, haven't made a single statement, which, I'm not a person who likes either side at the moment. I would like to say I'm an independent, but I think that everybody should definitely identify their stance and then see how they can resolve the problem rather than making it worse. And I think everybody's just trying to make it worse by saying it's Palestine, it's Israel, rather than saying people are dying. We need to stop this. Like, the fact that the UN hasn't come out and said we need to stop the reaction that Israel is having is mind-boggling to me. Article 2, Section 6 clearly states non-members are supposed to be it is supposed to be ensured that non-member states act in accordance of peace and prosperity, which is mind-boggling. but sorry.
No, don't apologize. I think I understand the take. Basically, it's wait for more facts to be released before making any strong judgments and withhold any kind of reactionary kind of like knee-jerk reaction. I think I can get aboard with that. If that's what you're saying, I agree. I think it is human to have reactions, right? To have initial. If you saw those videos and you didn't have an initial reaction to it, I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of weird. It should awaken something in you. You should have a visceral reaction to videos like that. However, you are correct. You shouldn't let that visceral reaction that you have dictate what you do in the future. One of the things that makes this situation very horrific is because, again, as many people saw, right, we knew what the response to this would be and how horrific and escalatory the response would be. Like, so it's not just that 1,000 civilians were murdered, right? It's that the response to this was going to also ensure that there was also a perpetuation of death and destruction. Again, mostly towards those who had nothing to do with this. And that is a horror, and that is something like that is just unforgivable.
That is
Go ahead.
also a strategy we often find in select terrorist groups, is that they do want a disproportionate response inflicted on their people of their country.
Iran is getting everything it could ever hoped in for and dreamed. Iran is sitting there cheering, right? The government of Iran, to be clear, the people of Iran are disgusted by this. The government of Iran is like, hell yeah, this is the greatest thing ever, because they got everything they wanted and more. Iran backs and funds Hamas. Let's be clear. Hamas has just given them all, like, again, every win they wanted. I don't know what to tell you, but Iran is giddy at both what happened, what Hamas did, as well as the response that is going on right now. So
It used to be we would try to be the bigger person in a situation to show what the better path is. And it seems like in our society, nobody even thinks about that anymore. Everybody's in a race to the bottom to say, well, they're doing this, so let's do it too. And while I get that it's hard to have the be a bigger person mentality, especially in a horrible case like this, how do you resolve two conflicting, very core ideologies like Israel and Palestine without having that be a bigger person moment? Like, Israel could have shown that they could have been the bigger person and said, you know what, as horrible as this is, we're going to show you that we are the actual bigger people in this instance, and we're going to, like, I get forgiveness is the last thing anybody's thinking about when they hear about babies being beheaded, right? But at some point, you have to break the cycle of hate. Hate only breeds hate. You don't solve violence by more violence. And the fact that they responded to death and destruction with more death and destruction, like, should be a stopgap for anybody.
yeah, I don't disagree. I do find it hard. They had to do something, right? We can agree on that, right? That Israel had to respond somehow. I think for them not to respond would be a horrible mistake, right? It would only embolden.
Giving
But
the terrorists exactly what they want.
but the response they're doing is not it, right? We can agree with that. Like, the response they're doing right now is not it. I don't pretend to know the solution. I don't. I can only, again, look at what I am seeing and base my judgments and base my opinions and base my thoughts on, again, what I see and what I know. Thank you for calling in, sir. OG
Thanks for having
Luke.
me.
And I will see
Take
you
care.
when I see you.
Joe Brooks was next. if
Joe
we are
Brooks
ready
is
to pull
next?
in.
Okay.
Yep, I believe they have sorted out there.
You're up. You're live. What you got?
Oh my God. All
Let's try it one more time.
right, Joe
Last
Brooks,
chance, buddy. Hello?
please be careful of what you click on. Oh my
Okay,
God.
whatever.
It might be an issue on their side. Yeah.
I'll just choose someone. Gatheist, what you up?
Hello.
You're
Y'all hear me?
live. What do you got?
All right. This is my little spiel for everyone on the conflict. And let me know how you think. And this is how I just set it up. So, first of all, we kind of have to accept that there is no solution that completely gets rid of Israel. Think that that's fundamentally not going to work because people there have been living, have been existing, and many of the actual population from that region is actually authentically Jewish and have people there. However, we must also recognize that the people of Gaza still deserve rights and support. And therefore, we should unfurl. And that is my little spiel.
I think that's a reasonable take. What do you think, Zephyr?
Sorry, I was fixing my mic. I've been seeing on chat that my mic might be a bit low, so I did not
Oh,
completely
you turned
hear
yourself up
what
and
you-
I turned yourself up, so now you're really loud.
Oh.
Don't touch it. You don't touch it. I'll touch it. Okay.
Right.
Now we're better. Okay, try.
It was okay. I just put it back to where it was, so maybe it was your.
Oh my goodness. Whatever. Hopefully it's better now. Go on with your take. Okay. Let's.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 𝕬𝖎. I was not paying attention.
Okay, well, let me give you my take. Okay. No,
course,
I
yeah,
think you're
please go ahead.
right. I think 𝕬𝖎's right here. Israel's there. Israel's not going away. Israel's been there for 75 years now. A little more than that, I think. It's there. Like it or not. However, that said, Palestine, the status quo isn't quo. Okay, it's not quo as they say, right? It's unsustainable. Something needs to give. Something needs to change. The Israelis' occupation and settlement policies are a horror and need to stop. I don't know exactly what needs to happen here. I can't give you a path forward that will work. I don't know. But I know what we're doing now, it just isn't working. And so something needs to give. We need to stop doing this bloodlust thing, right? Where everyone's asking like, oh, the Palestinians are monsters. Rah, 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 glass them, get them, get them, get them. We need to stop that. We need to cut that shit out right now.
Wait, I have a question on this part.
Please.
Would you say that because of the power differential, that the onus is on Palestine to propose peaceful solutions? I mean, Israel can do that, of course, but should the higher onus?
I don't know if one side has an onus to peaceful solutions here. I think that both sides need to kind of figure it out. They've tried before, right? I mentioned the Oslo Accords in the 90s. Israel tried withdrawing in 2006. There's been other times where they've tried. It's just nothing like. It's this constant cycle, and this is what makes it so complex, so infinitely complex, because there's this constant cycle of both sides being able to point to atrocities that the other side has committed and saying, this is why we can never work with you or never trust you. And you have outside foreign influences, right, funneling money into both groups, right, and all players involved, because there's more than just two groups here. There's a lot of players involved here. And you have foreign influences meddling, toying around and things like that. Iran, again, is like the puppet masters of the region in a lot of ways. They fund Hezbollah, they fund Hamas, they've given a lot of aid and stuff like that. You have Saudi Arabia getting their fingers in the pies there. Saudi Arabia and Israel were trying to normalize relations recently. That is what I don't know if this is true, but one of the reasons I heard for why Hamas did this was to kind of put the death knell on that. But I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, there's a lot there, and it's just there are so many people not wanting peace that it makes peace very, very hard. Go on.
So what's supposed to happen here, what the actual solution is supposed to be, was this sort of international kind of accountability. That whenever Palestine and the ideal, the Palestinian government, right, does something that we wouldn't like, we would be able to financially restrict them and financially scrutinize them because of our connected markets. We could withhold aid. We could do a lot of things to force them to behave in a certain way. However, again, the Palestinian government isn't like very established because of the, again, existent conflict and reigning over. And it makes sense that people see the government there as weak and unestablished because they really don't have freedoms. They just have like whatever kind of like Israel allows. And that's not how you negotiate with a nation, which is part of the change that needs to happen.
Fair enough. Thank you for coming in for this, 𝕾𝖍𝖎. I really appreciate you. We got a little bit of line. I want to get to as many people as possible. So again, thank you for the take.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
No one else has DM'd me, so you can pull in whoever.
I'll pull in everyone's favorite. No one will dislike this choice. Vivian, hi.
Wick. God damn, you say some dumb shit sometimes, Wick. Holy fucking shit, dude.
Lay it on me.
Okay, so there's two huge objections that I already have, like with things that you've said so far, right? Let's do the one because Niasox asked me what like the path forward is, and I think this kind of leads into it, right? The first one is the complex thing, right? And you're not a total fucking idiot for saying it, because everybody fucking says it. Everybody's like, this situation's so complex. I don't know how we can possibly dig our way out of the situation, right? And that comes from, firstly, I believe, like a lack of information on the situation. You just don't know what the fuck you're talking about, which is fine, right? Like, there's a lot of parties involved. If you haven't paid a decent amount of attention, it's difficult to dig it all out, right? But the other reason is because, like, people want you to think that it's so complex that there's no easy solution, right? Because the easy solution is the ending of the occupation of the Gaza Strip, the ending of the occupation of the West Bank, the stopping of increasing settlements, right?
Wait, what does ending the occupation mean?
that.
Describe to me how this ends. Describe to me how the occupation of the Gaza Strip ends. Like the process, please. It's easy, right? Simple.
Sorry, what do you mean describe the process?
So you said end the occupation. The occupation of the Gaza Strip needs to end. Okay, describe how that happens.
I haven't fully finished my explanation anyway.
But I think this is indicative that I think you're full of shit on this, that it is super complex.
Okay. Calm down, Wick.
Okay.
All right. So one of the major problems that the Palestinians have had, right, was the election of Hamas, right? It was the support of Israel, essentially, by ceasing operations against Hamas and targeting Fatah back in 2000 and was it 5, whatever, that allowed Hamas to gain more power, right? And what we as like other nations need to do is put pressure on Israel to slow and withdraw, right? And put pressure on Palestine to liberalize, which means supporting more liberal secular factions of the Palestinian leadership, right? And the Palestinian Authority, the PLO. And that means supporting groups like Fatah, right? Now, Fatah are in no way perfect, in my view, right?
Sure.
They got some dodgy ass shit in their fucking charter. But to say that they are as bad as Hamas would be fucking insane.
Yeah,
right?
Hamas is on a separate level, right? We can all agree.
Right, exactly. The PLO have kept to the Oslo Accords, right? Israel have not, right? Israel have been condemned on the international stage by the UN, by the EU,
rightly so.
for war crimes, for breaking the Oslo Accords. Israel are not held to the contracts that they signed, right? And there needs to be that, and there needs to be a support of more liberal secular factions of the Palestinian leadership, right? If you can do these two things simultaneously, you can eventually end up in a situation where a withdrawal can be completed in a peaceful manner, because the more liberal secular factions that don't want war, that haven't engaged in violence, right, are the ones that are in power, that have more power in Palestine. But you can't do that while you're constantly so the first thing has to be no new settlements, right? You can't do it while you're constantly evicting people in not just no new settlements, right, but like no new evictions either. I don't care about your fucking dumbass right to return shit with like, oh, this was my family's house before like 1940 whatever the fuck it was. I'm sorry. At some point, you gotta fucking you gotta cut the line, right? Because whole generations have been born in that fucking house now, right? Squatters' rights, like deal with it, okay? So no more evictions in the West Bank either, right? That I think has to be the first thing that we put real pressure on. And no new settlements was an agreement in the Oslo Accords.
I agree.
Right?
I don't disagree with anything you said so far. I think it's very reasonable.
So
I think it's very fine. Yeah.
So it's not a complex situation. It's a very simple
Hey.
situation.
Because that's a step, but that doesn't solve it. It doesn't solve it by any means, right? Because you have, again,
it's gonna take time to untangle this shit, but we're going in completely the opposite direction and have been for fucking decades, right?
Again, I don't disagree with that. We have. But again, like to propose this as a simple thing, because it is a tangled mess with various interests from various parties that are outside of Israel, that are outside of Palestine even, that have very much their fingers in the pies, that have national interests, like Iran again, funds a lot of terrorists.
Yeah. So what we have to do to stop this conflict, right, is relatively simple, but we are not going to do it because of the dominionists in the fucking United States and the insanity around Israel in the United States that's tied up with Christian evangelism and dominionism. And because of the historical political ties with Israel in a lot of the Western world, so we're not going to do it, right? Things are going to get worse, and it's going to end in genocide. And it has been sickening watching the manufacturing of consent for genocide on mainstream media over here in the UK. I haven't been watching an awful lot of American TV on this issue because I'm more interested in what my government's saying and doing, right? But
and vice versa. I don't know what UK is saying on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've had disgusting things. I think we had the Palestinian ambassador to the UK being pulled onto various news shows, asked repeatedly if he condemns the violence, even when he says that he hasn't condemned. He has condemned the violence, right? And then having 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 from Sky News asking every single fucking politician if they agree with the Palestinian ambassador that Israel had it coming, when he never said Israel have it coming, you know. So shit like that. There's stuff like the chap who was on, was it last caller or the one before,
Admiral
was
Gibbs
talking about the babies being beheaded, right? This is something that the Israeli army said didn't happen. Somebody else was talking about.
Do you have a source on that? Because I've seen different accounts of this. I've seen reputable people say that a reporter was told by the Israeli soldiers.
It's going to be running on the front page of several of our newspapers here in the UK tomorrow.
Sure, but do you have a source that's saying it didn't happen?
Babies were beheaded, but
yeah, just DM that to me.
Sorry, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'll pull up that.
Please, yeah, it doesn't have to be right now, but at some point, get me that, because I would love to see it. Because if I can,
the Israeli army said it didn't happen. There's also the rape claims, right? I'm not saying rapes didn't occur. I think there's probably a good chance that they did, right? Especially if they're targeting.
There are eyewitness accounts of it.
All
yes.
that sort of shit. There are eyewitness accounts, according. So as far as I've seen, like, the the woman who was mentioned, who was pulled off the truck, right? Everybody assumed she was raped because there was blood in the seat of her pants, right? But there's no evidence that that particular woman was raped. There is eyewitness accounts
How do
of
you think
people
the
being
blood,
raped at the festival. I mean, it could have been any number of ways, right? Like she's fucking covered in blood. She could have been sitting in a pool of blood with her
she's
hands
not.
down.
Her pants are clear except for one very specific area, right? Where the blood is pooling and soaking through.
Her pants have some blood on them, right? But most of the blood, but there is a pool of blood on the seat of her pants. Her arms are covered in blood, right? There's a cut on her arm. But also, I'm just saying, right? Like blood on the seat of your pants can get there in a whole bunch of different ways. Not necessarily the case that she's been raped, right? I'm not saying she wasn't raped. I'm just saying we don't have confirmation that's the case, right?
I mean,
I'm
again,
saying
this isn't the only image, and again with the eyewitness accounts, and again with the fact that again Hamas went in and mowed down people left and right, and we thought they like at what point do they stop?
Look, wait. You need to understand, right? Like, I'm not saying Hamas are really good guys and they did great shit, right? Like, they fucking went to the music festival, walked around like mass shooters, just fucking murdering people. All right, I'm fully aware of this. They fucking massacred the kibbutz. Okay, and children are among the dead, although, according to the Israeli army, not beheaded. What I'm trying to say is, right, that people are drawing a lot of conclusions and spreading a lot of misinformation. And the amount of misinformation around this has been fucking insane. I mean, we've had people spreading videos of football celebrations saying this is war in the Gaza Strip, right? Like it's been absolutely nuts. One of my friends, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, he works for the BBC, and he's been working overtime to try and debunk misinformation and tell the true narratives of things that happened. He has a very good article on the music festival, actually, which describes everything we know about the music festival, right? And that does involve people going from one person to another, shooting them in the fucking head, just executing civilians.
If you had to put $100 on it, $100 on whether people were raped by Hamas.
I'm not gonna do that. That's fucking vile.
No, but
Like,
no, but what you're doing though is you're saying,
on
well,
or not people were raped.
was it blood? Where did it come from? Like the amount, like you're acting like we need some NCIS level fucking forensic evidence here to say, hey, people were raped.
Well, I mean,
with a degree of certainty. I have seen enough that I have a pretty good degree of certainty.
If you have multiple possible explanations, right? Like her hands are bound behind her back, she could have been placed sitting in a pool of blood very easily, right? If you have multiple explanations, it's very dishonest to say this is what happened, right? Unless you have good evidence to suggest that that's the case, right?
Again, it's the preponderance of evidence, the eyewitness accounts. That's not only there were videos of them being held up, right, blood pooling down their legs. Not this specific woman, but others, right, where it was. I think I was just
addressing this specific woman, right? That's it, right? Like I said earlier, I think it's very probable rapes have happened, right? Okay. Because of the savagery and barbarity of the attacks against deliberately targeting civilians, and knowing that rape is a common weapon of war used by those who are willing to commit these kinds of war crimes, right? I do think there probably were rapes, right? I was saying that in this specific instance, we don't know, right? We don't have good evidence either way to suggest she was or wasn't. She could have been. I do not know, right? And that's the important point. You do not know either. So to say that she was, right, is just another example of spreading misinformation. It's not like the most heinous or the worst one that's occurred, right? But I think yeah, and so we're kind of moving into my second big objection, actually, which was you saying we have to watch these videos and we have to bear witness, right?
Yes.
And I think that is that is not only untrue, it can be really dangerous, right?
Sure.
Because this shit fucks people up, right? Like, I know people who go through this stuff for a living, and they have to have regular fucking counseling and shit. They have to have regular breaks. Every once in a while, one of them's like, I can't fucking do this anymore, right? Because it fucks you up. If you're gonna do it, turn the sound off. There's a really good fucking tip. The sound is often even worse
I'm
than
not
the
advocating
physical.
for this to be like on a roll on repeat that you do forever and ever, right? Like that's not what I'm asking here. What I'm
No,
saying
but
is that there are people who
the
are going
point
to
is
be
that
saying
they're
that this
being
did
put
not
out.
happen, and we have to remember that. Like, do you think it was a mistake that after the World War II that we forced German citizens to watch what the atrocities that were committed by the
Yes, I
Nazi
think
regime?
I do think denazification was a fucking abomination. Actually, it was awful. Yeah, the same as what happened in Imperial Japan under the American occupation. There was like things we've done in the name of quote unquote denazification have been utterly disgusting, right? And you won't find anybody more against Nazis than me. But forcing random civilians to watch videos of atrocities and war crimes is disgusting, in my view. Yeah, but it traumatizes you, and it does. And even if you don't care about any of that shit, if you're like, oh yeah, I'm a really strong person, I'll never be traumatized by this, and I just think you're fucking stupid. But let's say you believe that that's the case, right? Um, you're still just doing what the fucking terrorists want you to do,
I
right?
think
You
Vivian Wick's point was that if
Uh-huh.
you are particularly celebrating what Hamas did, maybe that those videos or
No,
questioning what
that's not
Hamas
my
did.
point.
Oh,
No,
okay.
let me say,
I'll
like,
take
I
that
think
back.
that there's a lot of people.
If you're celebrating what Hamas did, like, actually, fuck you. And sure, yeah, maybe these people need to be shown some of those videos so they can see what they're actually cheering for. I made a post very similar to that on the first day when some of the stuff was coming out. I think if somebody that is actively working and campaigning to deny it, right? Maybe those people need to be shown the videos so that they can no longer say that they are entirely unaware, right? But what Wick said very specifically early on is we need to watch these things. We need to bear witness, right? And I do not think that that's the case. There are people whose jobs it is to do this, right? And those are people who have had training and people who have fucking psychologists on call and shit and know how to protect themselves from the trauma that is induced, right? And even though they have training and know how to protect themselves from the trauma that is induced, they still experience that trauma. There's also the problem of being able to process it. The terrorists want these videos to come out, right? In Ukraine, there were Russians were fucking live streaming the execution of family members to each other. There's been rumors of that happening in this instance as well. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but it could well be happening, right? Hamas are fucking Zarqawi posting right now, right? Al-Zarqawi, the propagandist in chief, if you like, for Al Qaeda, and later on ISIS sort of taking on his methods as well, right? The idea is to portray themselves as barbarically as possible in order to inspire hatred and bloodlust in their opponents, such that they will take retaliatory action against people like them, right? So for Al-Zarqawi, it was to increase racism and hatred towards Muslims in the Western world to make them feel separated from it, right? So they're more easy to recruit. And for Hamas, it will be very much the same in that they want to incite the violence that will then come against the citizens of the Gaza Strip.
But there is
Right.
a reason also why there are a lot of people who are supporters of Hamas who do not want you to see this, because again, they are going to in the coming days deny that it happened. They will say that these are all just propaganda. You can't believe this is just Western U.S. Israel kind of propaganda. It was overstated. This was overbooked. These were lies, etc., etc., etc. And people, again, right or wrong, believe
But
their eyes in these
if you
things.
believe that it did happen, you don't need to watch it. That's what
I
I'm saying.
fundamentally disagree. There's a difference between hearing, hey, 10 people were killed, and seeing it. It affects us differently. And I think that
Yes,
we
it does.
need to be
It
affected.
affects us in a horrific way.
We need
Yeah.
to be affected to say, look at
You
this.
need
This
to,
is a result.
you need to also be made a casualty of that terror attack.
Again, to act as if me seeing what happened is making me a casualty, I think it's just fundamentally not the case. I'm not a casualty.
If you're willing to watch some of these videos, there's a pretty good fucking chance that you've seen somebody die before. If you see 10 more people die, right, it's not much different. All it does is compound the trauma, and you can see the many ways in which people
Again,
can
I'm not
die.
asking you to watch these on repeat, on loop, but bear witness. Don't turn away, right? When you see some of these things, right? At least
No,
watch
turn
one.
away. It's fine. It's totally fine to turn away. It's totally fine to go,
Okay.
hey, I don't want to become another victim of this terror attack. It is enough that I know that it
Hear no
occurred.
evil, see no
I am
evil, speak no evil. I
vehemently
get it.
against it, and that I understand the situation. It is that is enough. You don't have to see it. Seeing it does what does seeing it do other than make you feel fucking awful?
It helps you remember. Vivian, thank you for coming on. We do have a line. And I'll see you later, buddy.
Sorry.
Okay. Yes, I just fundamentally disagree. But we talked about that. Let's next. Who's next? Anyone up?
I believe 𝕻𝖎𝖙 and Orion. Oh, Orion has left, so maybe 𝕻𝖎𝖙 would be the one to call in next.
You're live. Hello. You're muted on your end. Come on.
Indeed, I am. Thank you so much, Wick. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Oh man, it's been a day, and you're a little quieter than the stream was. That's okay. I can fix it. So I've got a few quick takes. Thanks for bringing me in. Actually, I got a little bit more time than I thought. When it comes to, and by the way, I loved the conversation with Vivian. And when it comes to the response to the terror attack on Gaza, I'm really cautious about people who treat criticism of the response as endorsing the attacks. And I see a lot of righties, for example, attacking 𝕵𝖎𝖎 over this point. He's very critical of the response, and there's a couple people like our friend Connor points who said that it was just like that joke that, oh man, it would be terrible.
Can you link me the response? I'll be real with you. I don't know 𝕵𝖎𝖎's response to this. So.
Yeah, well, I can find it pretty easily. It's I got into a pretty big Twitter beef about this one. But the joke is that, oh, it would be terrible if some Islamic country set off a dirty bomb and killed tens of millions of Americans, because the response would just be so horrific. I mean, just, oh man, that response would be so horrific, wouldn't it? And so this was the joke.
It's a Norm Macdonald joke. I remember this.
Right. And so this idea that the killing of 1,000 Israeli citizens and and travelers from Europe and such is the same as killing 10 to 20 million Americans is pretty unhinged. The idea that we need to react in the same way, or that even Israel should be reacting in the same way as if a significant portion, like 10% of their population was killed, is not realistic.
Let me just ask this. If you were in charge of Israel right now, what would your response be to this? What would you do?
I have a great response for that. There is a quote from 𝕬𝖎 Rabin, and it says, we must fight terrorism as if there is no peace process, and we must work to achieve peace as if there is no terror.
That's a cool
and this
quote.
Was,
what? Okay.
This was, no, let's explain it. This was 𝕬𝖎 Rabin's response to a terror attack that was intended to sort of divert the Oslo Accord, to sort of stop the peace process in its tracks.
Okay, I understand.
So,
but again, I'm asking you, 1,000 of your citizens has just been brutally murdered. Brutally, okay? Throats slit, paraded, their corpses paraded through the streets, live on camera, right? This has just happened.
You're soy.
What do you do?
This is this is a false choice. This is, you know, to ask me to respond in a brutal way. And
I'm not asking. I
war.
didn't
War is
ask
bad.
you to respond brutally.
Okay.
I'm asking you, what do you do? It's perfectly acceptable of an answer to say I do nothing if that's what you want to do. But I'm asking you,
I wouldn't say nothing.
What do you
I would
do?
say that, you know, there is an appropriate and measured response.
What is
and
that?
I think is okay. Secure the ports of entry where you think the guns are coming in, back to the tunnels, back to security apparatus. Of course, there's conspiracy theories that this was allowed to happen, just like there are conspiracy theories that 9/11 was allowed to happen. So barring the confirmation of any of that, you know, we can secure the ports of entry of any possible weapons. We can work with people like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and all of the regional partners to de-escalate the violence. We can work to find out where these funds came from and know they didn't come from Joe Biden's $6 billion that was actually Iran's money. We can look at, you know, did Iran have a hand in this? Do we need to upset any of the, you know, the diplomatic issues that might arise? Do we need to look, did Russia have a hand in any of this? Because ironically, or coincidentally...
Are we just shifting the blame from Hamas to Iran and Russia?
Of course. Well, let's talk about Hamas in a moment.
I still haven't gotten a good response. So we look at the situation.
You don't like any of this? You don't like any security apparatus response? You think that
okay?
So you are actually asking, you're soying at me. I'm an expert. You're soying at me and asking me for a brutal response. If security apparatus is not a response you like, what is a response you would like? Tell me now.
What would I do?
Yeah, you said a security apparatus response is not appropriate.
That is fine. That is fine to do all that. But you need to go in and you need to find Hamas and you need to take them out. Hamas needs to not exist anymore.
The
best way to do that isn't carpet bombing, to be clear. We
Okay.
don't bomb, right? We don't go and glass them. That's not what I'm talking about. We go door to door. We find these people. We use our intelligence apparatus to identify these people, separate them, and bring them and hold them for justice. That's what we do. And yes, it's going to be more costly. It's going to be more dangerous. It's going to be more work than simply glassing them and bombing them, right? But it needs to happen. There is no response that leaves... I will accept no response that leaves Hamas still there at the end, right?
So you need to identify. You need to identify that the political elected body of Gaza was connected with these attacks and helped organize these attacks. Because yes, in name, they are. They're endorsing and they're sloganeering and all of that says yes. So do you need to go through the leadership of this elected body and say you need to swear right now that you're not going to endorse terror or you're out?
No, it's too late. They don't need to.
Okay.
We can't be like, you got to say you'll never do it again. We can't trust them at this point. Again,
okay.
If you're
Do you do that
Hamas,
for every potential
Hamas,
elected party in Gaza? Do you have to screen every politician in Gaza?
If they are part of Hamas, they are complicit. Yes.
Okay. What if they're not part of Hamas? What if they're a different
part of Hamas
revolutionary?
Then
okay.
Again, it's fine.
So what if the next
take different
party turns out to be as bad as Hamas?
And that's a problem, right?
Okay, it is. So this is what I'm asking, and you're dodging. Do you interrogate every politician in Gaza and make them swear to lay down arms?
I'll repeat what I said because maybe you didn't listen. I said was...
I listened, you're just not following the logical conclusion.
Find out anyone who is in Hamas, go door to door, go house to house, find them, remove them, right? And then hold them to account, put them on trial, and do what you need to do. Okay, that is what you need to do. Anything in the future, right? If more terrorists pop up, deal with them when they pop up, right? If more different terrorist groups act up, deal with them as they act up, right? But right now, the response to this attack should be, again, finding Hamas and making sure it no longer exists. Simple, but
All
not
right.
easy.
I think you might think it's non-trivial, but also
No, it's
you've
not non-trivial. It's going to be work. It's going to be hard.
Right.
Identifying them is going to be ridiculously hard because there's a lot of different intricacies. This is not going to be an easy task, but it needs to happen. It's going to be the course of a long period of time, but it needs to happen.
𝕾𝖎𝖙, I would like to point out that this is not simply a case of, oh, they grew up and they got brainwashed into it. No, this is something that is being educated to children. Like, children are being taught that from a young age. It's not simply a case of de-escalation of security. It's like,
okay, Zephyr, let me ask the question.
You have to convert the minds of a large scale of people.
Okay, let me ask the question to you, Zephyr. Do you interrogate every politician in Gaza and make them swear not to endorse terrorism?
I think the swearing part is easy. I think you can make people, make politicians swear, or that would be essentially signing like an accord. I know probably not the most effective, but that is a form of like swearing in, I guess.
Right. So this is now a condition for the people of Gaza to have any autonomy. And let's be clear, they probably don't have very much autonomy right now with settlements and with the blockades. But I think maybe this could work, but I don't. It doesn't feel good as an American. Perhaps that's my bias. It doesn't feel good.
That's fair.
Well, I would think like people would be surprised if there was a peaceful solution. I think we would be surprised how many people are on board for it. It's just that the problem is there doesn't seem to be a simple peaceful solution.
Well,
both sides are unwilling to
the
negotiate.
Problem is there are
on very
actors in the
fundamental
region
issues.
who do not want peace. There are actors in the region who do not want peace. A destabilized Israel, a destabilized Palestine, it's good for them politically.
Yeah.
And so they will work to continue to destabilize the region. That is something that we need to address on the world stage, right? But when we're talking about the immediate response in the aftermath of these attacks, one, here's my take. There has to be a response. There has to. You can't do nothing. Two, you have to have a measured and proportionate response. And that doesn't mean just take 1,000 of them and then kill them. That's not what that means, okay? What that means is, like I said, door to door, using your intelligence apparatus, find out these leaders of Hamas and removing them. The foot soldiers of Hamas, removing them. Anyone involved in the attack, planning the attack, aiding and abetting the attack, remove them. Third, will be everything after that, right? Like making sure that there's other things, and it gets more complex the further in time we go. But that needs to happen immediately. 𝕾𝖎𝖙, is there anything else before we let you go?
I sent you the DM containing Connor's. It's in your DMs.
Okay.
There's.
I confirm. I got it. I can confirm. I got it. I will check it out. I guess my immediate take is. My immediate take on seeing it, right, is that, so in my mentions on Twitter, there have been plenty of people who, when I say, man, this is horrific that 900 people just got butchered, right, or 700 or whatever the number what it was, and I was expressing horror, that would come into my mentions and say, but what about Israel? And I think that peels to the heart of, I think, the joke. Right? That people are more concerned about, well, this is going to be horrific for the Palestinians than they are about like what happened to the Israelis. They are minimizing the deaths of one group. And I think that's wrong. I think that, yes, it is going to be horrific what happens to Palestinians. It's going to be a horror. But we can't minimize the death of one group to explain that, right? We have to, we have to stop doing that. It's like, again, I'll use this comparison again because it's apt. If the day after George Floyd had died, people would come and it's like, what about all the white people who get killed by cops too? It's tone deaf. It doesn't help. Yeah, we know, but we're talking about this right now. This is a horrific event. Let's discuss this. That's what it is.
And the final thing is that in response to me asking if Connor was mask off, Rob Knorr responded and basically said that someone, but contextually he's talking about 𝕵𝖎, was defending the actions of Hamas. And so this is sort of the rhetoric on October 7th. This is how the rhetoric was developing. And so let's be cautious about labeling different people on the left as supporters of Hamas, because these extremely, nutso right-wingers love to broad brush everyone as a supporter of Hamas.
No, absolutely. That's not true. Equating Hamas and Palestine is a mistake. Palestine is a mistake. Hamas is a Palestinians are just as much a victim of Hamas as they are of Israel. Like, Hamas, in fact, has been worse for them than Israel. I'll go on that brave take, right? Hamas is not. In 2006, when they were elected, I think it was 2006, what they could have done is use their monies to build schools, infrastructure, and to try to do that. But instead, they bought rockets and guns and threw people off roofs who were their political enemies. That's what happened. That's what they did. Israel does bear blame to that, because Israel did fund Hamas and did help Hamas kind of rise to power in that way. That's something we can talk about too. But again, the bodies aren't cold yet. So maybe save all that for later, and maybe just don't make us genuflect every time we try to say, hey, murder and rape is bad, by saying, well, Israel this, Israel that. That's not, we could talk about that soon. Don't worry. But it's just weird to me. It's suspicious. I'm deeply suspicious of the people who did that, because again, they're run cover for people in Australia screaming "Gas the Jews, gas the Jews, gas the Jews," right? Like, they're running cover for people who are weaving and cheering on in the streets right after this happened. That's horrific to me. Soyadl, thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye bye. To the void. Okay. Yeah, because that's what happened, right? We saw it in real time. People would justify, and run cover, well, no, they're just chanting pre-Palestine. How do you know they're connected to Hamas? Motherfucker, they say they're celebrating Al-Aqsa Storm, which was the code name of the Hamas attack, right? They're using on their posters a hang glider. What do you think that's signaling here, right? Like, we don't have to let the brains fall out of our heads because we don't like Israel, right? We can acknowledge these things are monstrous, and we shouldn't celebrate monstrous acts. I want to reiterate that a lot of the people I follow on Twitter had great takes on this. A lot of the people who I knew, right, because they've done so for years, have condemned Israel over and over and over and over again whenever they've done their war crimes and atrocities and things like that, and the oppression that they put upon the Palestinian people. These people, right? These people said what happened last night at the time was horrific and unjustifiable. There is no justification whatsoever for this. And bang on, right take, they are human, right? But then you have play actors, right? People who were more concerned about who I have on my panels than 900 plus civilians dead. Like, seriously, they were more upset because I've had certain people on my show than they were about the massacre of 1,000 civilians. That shows where their priorities lie. It's crazy. And they are monsters. Anyway, next caller.
Joe Brooks has DM'd me again, but
Oh, well, let's try Commander Kai.
Right.
Commander Kai, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, you're low, though. Can you turn yourself up?
Try my best. I'm not really a Discord guy.
Let me turn you up, too.
Appreciate that. And I won't be too quick. I'm mostly agreeing with everything you have been saying so far. So that's nice. Let me try. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. So, hi, Wick. I only started watching you since the SFO debate with Karl. What is it? Ken Max?
Karl Max.
Karl Max. So something like that. So you did fantastic there. Just wanted to let you know. Great job.
Thank you.
Got a subscriber from that. And all right. All I'm going to say is I don't really want to touch on Israel-Palestine itself. I just want to talk about some of the reactions. The anti-colonial narrative that they were pushing. And they were like, oh, what do you think anti-colonialism is? It's like, so what? It's like going into towns and murdering everybody? Is that what, it is? Because that's very mask off for a lot of people on Twitter. Like, justifying slaughter of, rave goers, people in their homes, children. I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you serious right now? And unironically, there's still some people are still doing it, and I just don't get it at all. It's tragic.
there's a video that I saw, and then I retweeted of a politician who's being interviewed by some guy, right? I don't know the man, but he's interviewing, and he asked this politician, it's an American politician who was at a Free Palestine rally, to condemn the violence that happened with the Hamas attack. He couldn't do it. He literally couldn't do it. The guy asked him like 3 or 4 times, and the guy was like, he didn't even give an answer, right? He said, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer this. I already gave you my answer. I'm not answering this, over and over. And then at the end, smugly, he's like, well, it doesn't matter. Only 3 people are going to see your bullshit video anyway. I got the shoe on head reply. It's going to be a lot more than 3 people, bro. Good luck, right? But I forget the state he was in. But it's worth going out and checking, because there are a lot of people like that, right? There are a lot of people like that who just simply, for whatever reason, can't do the basic human first step of, yeah, that's nuts. It's pretty horrific that 900 people died. And then you have the people who go even further than just not condemning it, but the people who actively justify it, being like, yo, this is what do you think decolonization would look like? Like, yo, if that's what decolonization looks like, you can stay colonized.
And I'll even add to that, like, those people making that argument, like, how far back do you want to go in history with that sort of decolonization thing? Palestinian Arabs came from Arabia in 700, 800s. The Jews can say, oh, we've been here since 2000 BC. Well, we're going to decolonize Palestinians. No, guys, that's a horrible argument. Don't justify genocide and mass slaughter of people based on, oh, well, we were here first, so we get to kill the whites or kill the Jew or kill the, whatever. It's the
Man, I'm not getting monetized for this video, gang. Gang, no,
sorry
it's
about
okay. I've been doing it too. Gang, just if I may, yeah, ad revenue's gone for this one. Sorry. So if you can help me out with super chats, gift subs, stuff like that, that would really help me. Thank you. Anyway, continue.
And so I want to put that one first, guys, don't kill anybody. I'm like, that's what people are saying, is that you justifying like ethnic, like, cleansing, genocide, population removal is, anybody could poke that sort of rhetoric, and decolonization has now just basically turned out to, oh, this is blood and soil rhetoric. This is the same stuff the Nazis said back in the 40s and 30s. Oh, we must be, ethnically pure, and we must get rid of all, the Jews and this and that and this and that. I'm not, again, historical context. They're doing the same thing that they would give a lot of shit to Israel for if they said this kind of stuff, which couple Israelis have. Obviously bad, don't do it. But the fact that is, there's academics, there's these historians and social justice activists who are using rhetoric that would be justifying mass murder is terrifying, because they're in schools, they're educating people, they're doing things that will only lead to more death. Because what do you think Israelis are going to see when, chunks of the left or chunks of the Palestinians do the from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. There's a country in the middle there called Israel, and
it's interesting to me, again, how the most insane calls aren't coming from Palestinians in Palestine, right? They're not coming from the people in the region. They're coming from people in America and Britain and Australia sitting behind their keyboards who are paler than me, right? Saying this bullshit, right?
Yep.
The people in the area are scared to death. Everyone, Israeli, Palestinian, they're all scared to death because, again, no one knows what is going to result from this. No one knows what's going to happen. But we know it's going to be like, there will be blood. And everyone in that area is just, they're frightened. They're scared. They are worried. They don't have time to virtue signal on Twitter, right? Because they know the actual cost of this. They know the real price of this. They have friends, loved ones that are paying the price right now, both in the retaliation that Netanyahu is giving to Israel, or giving to Palestine, sorry, and the murderers who came in across and murdered the people of Israel. It's horrific. But yeah, it's mostly the people outside the region who are making these weird kind of, this is decolonization kind of takes. But anyway, anything else before I let you go?
Also, like, I have no idea how you could tolerate certain people who will pretend rape didn't happen, even though there's obvious evidence to it. Because, but you know for a fact, the person I'm referring to, Vivian, would 100% say, "Oh,
If
everything
you talk
is
shit about Vivian, I'm gonna let her come talk shit about you.
okay. I'll take
Okay,
it, and I will
fair
happily."
enough.
No,
Carry
right?
on then. Right.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it's just people in their biases will believe the propaganda that, if I'm sure anything Israel puts out, she'll say, "Oh, this is propaganda. This is bad." Everything the Palestinians put out, she'll say this is 100% unironically true. Everything Israel's doing is bad. There is a problem with their what do you call it? The blinders saying, this is
Biases? Are
good,
you
this is bad.
saying that?
Yeah.
Are you saying Vivian's biased?
What? No, I'm not saying that. She's 100% objective. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, buddy. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate you for the sub. I'm glad you like this SFO debate. We're trying to get me and SFO are talking. We're trying to get him to debate Socked on Left soon, and we're also going to have him on and talking to 𝕵𝖎𝖎 when 𝕵𝖎𝖎 feels better. She's had COVID, so that should be an interesting discussion as well. But anyway, dude, thanks for coming. I'll talk to you
Ah,
later.
fantastic. Thanks a lot, man.
Take care.
Hello.
Right, Joe Brooks. I vouch for you. I hope this works.
Hello, am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Yep.
Okay, we can hear you
Good.
now.
Well, there's
Great.
there's what I've been doing wrong. I've been clicking join voice, and every time it kicks me out. But you can hear me now.
Yes. Oh, before you
Okay.
start, $10 from Brendan Hoover. Thank you for the $10. W Israel, here comes a clap back. We shouldn't be celebrating this, dude. Like, thank you for the $10. But this isn't a cause for celebration or anything, right? Don't do that, please. That's not okay. We can say, hey, look, this is going to be horrific. I feel really sorry for the victims and stuff like that. But this rah, rah, rah stuff, not my scene, not my deal. Okay, carry on.
Okay, yeah, it's a shame I can't have my camera on because I do have it set up, but I'm afraid if I click voice, it'll kick me out. So I just want to say, I got this quote here. It's sad that we must sometimes hang a man, but let us not take any joy in it, and let us not hang his wife and children. I think that's Tolkien, but I also think I might have just made that up. I'm not sure. So that's what I've kind of been taken into this, which is that there seems to be a lot of obvious sadism coming from a lot of people. If you want me to give my take on the left, I think this has always kind of been a problem. I assume you're aware of the Red Army in Germany.
Are we
But
talking World War II times?
no,
or-
after the activist / terrorist group.
Oh, yeah. I'm only vaguely.
aware
I
of
don't have a
them?
lot of information on that.
Yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
Meinhof-Brunov
Only vaguely. I
complex.
don't have enough to weigh in on that.
It's an interesting story because it was basically a bunch of kind of lefties who got very into kind of like opposing the current German government. They sympathized a lot with a lot of like third world sort of countries and groups, and at the end they kind of ended up like working with actual like full-blown terrorists, some Arabs, some white nationalists actually. But it's kind of an interesting example of kind of, I guess, a full political circle, so to speak. And I think a lot of it comes from a sort of edgelord appeal. Like, I've never really been comfortable with a lot of Castro loving. If someone wants to argue that
Castro
was
loving?
preferable,
Yeah, that's a weird way to put it.
well,
but
let's
fair.
talk Castro loving. Let's talk about that briefly.
Castro loving. That sounds like a title on Pornhub, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you will see. Well, I'm sure there is a Castro porn parody because you will see brags about how he slept with 2 different women every day, and you kind of, I don't know if what that's coming from, but what's weird is you read it and it's like a brag. It's like, oh, this is cool, and I'm like, that sounds like Castro did what a lot of strongmen did and just, had a good supply of teenagers to rape on the regular, which I don't know if that's true. It might just be a brag which got out of control, which is a little less creepy when you. It might be made up. I'm just saying it's weird to see people celebrate
Okay,
that.
where are
'Cause
we
that-
going? Where are we going with
Because that
this?
sounds creepy as fuck. I'm just saying that's sort of a problem I think people who maybe like to edgelord a bit have, where they want to find something cool and alternative to kind of support, and Hamas ends up sort of being like that. That's why you
I'm sure
probably
that
will
there's
see.
some of that in there. I'm sure that there's some contrarianism in there, like we hate
Yeah.
the West and
Yeah,
mommy and
I
daddy are
will.
rich and we hate mommy and daddy, and so we're gonna go with whatever mommy
Not
and dad
always,
makes mommy
really.
and daddy the maddest. I'm sure that there are some in there, but there are others, right, who legitimately no shit, right, support like any cost, free Palestine, no matter the cost, like no matter what. We don't care what we have to do. And those are the people who worry me more.
Well, we do have to consider that if you are serious about freeing Palestine, which probably means you want to see an end to Israel in a lot of cases. I mean, the Palestinians probably mostly want the Israel gone, and Israel probably mostly wants Palestine gone when you break it down. The thing is, with any war, it's going to inherently be unpleasant. Like, it's just the fact that, dead children, dead women, this is the norm. Like, if you're going total war, that's going to happen. I think what people have with Hamas is when Israel kills a lot of people, it's bombs, it's rubble. That's what you see. You see some bodies. There isn't the Bronze Age thing of dragging a bunch of women about with like blood streaming out their cunts and cheering. It's a little more clean, although the end result is still a large number of people dead. I think Israel, from what I've heard, they've kind of began to even the numbers at this point with their retaliation. But I do think there is a difference in terms of just the unpleasantness of what you're seeing. It does feel more deliberate, like there's a bit more joy in what's going on when you talk about Hamas. That's why I'd say, that's why I do think targeting a music festival is kind of telling. It's more in line with the terrorism you used to see in like European countries all the time, where it'll be some terrorist blew himself up in a stadium or something. It feels a bit different to like a direct attack on like a government facility or something, which to be fair would be a lot harder, and you probably wouldn't kill anywhere near as many people. But
well, they did
still.
strike military targets too, but they struck
Yeah.
it in order to get at and get in so that they can kill the civvies, right? That was like they wanted to keep the military from interfering. And that's why they struck some like observation towers. They struck a few other things, like you saw the video of the tank getting blown up and things like that. So, but yeah, the purpose was to get at the civilians. So I think that's where the difference was.
Let's not
I'm going to give you the last thought. Oh, go ahead, Zephyr. Then I'm going to give you.
I was just going to point out that the purpose of terrorism is to create terror, and it's not about how many people die. It's about what, like, they're made into a show. Like, it's not about. It's more about the explosion rather than the bodies, oftentimes. So that is also something that we must take into account. But obviously, in this case, a lot of bodies also, a lot of people also died. So, yeah, this one, yeah, terrorism is not simply about, oh, we need to kill people. It's about making a show out of it, unfortunately.
Joe, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, okay. I was going to quickly go off in that I do think, I've talked about the left briefly, but I will say, like, Peterson, Ben Shapiro, like, they're basically doing the same cheer, just the other side and a bit more careful.
Yep. Anyone calling for the glassing of Gaza is gross and disgusting. I agree. But I'll see you later, buddy.
Okay.
What? We got a Sunday raid? Why? Welcome in, I guess. Stay a while. Listen. Vivian, I promised Vivian that she would be able to come on, and because someone talked shit about her, and so I'm going to let her come on and talk shit back.
Oh, Commander Kai is also on the call, by the way.
I don't know if I want to make it a. I don't know if I want to make it a debate or not.
This motherfucker just came in screaming at me about genocide 𝕵𝖔𝖎 and shit. Was like, "Do you want to have something to fucking say to me?" Fucking rah rah rah.
Do you
and then wouldn't even fucking listen to my
too?
response. I mean, you can if you want. Motherfucker's unhinged, though. I've very clearly said I think there probably were rapes, right? I said that
Yes.
very clearly to you,
Yes.
Wick. Right? Thank you very much. I just said in that particular instance, I don't believe we have evidence to know for sure whether she was or she wasn't, right? And it's irresponsible to say that she definitely was, because there's too much fucking misinformation flying around. But yeah, you can bring him on, because I have something else to say as well. He said I would believe any fucking propaganda if it came from the Palestinians, and wouldn't believe anything that the Israeli government say. I believe I opened by saying that the Israeli army had said that there weren't any babies beheaded. So that's
Yeah,
one
you
thing
said
that
you were
I
going to give me
believe,
that
right?
link. I'll get it when I get it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, I spoke at length about the dangers of misinformation, and that goes from the Palestinian side or from the Israeli side,
You
right?
did
Like,
say
in a
that
conflict
Hamas
like
was
this,
putting out a lot of
I,
misinformation.
I,
and
I literally
propaganda,
just said, yeah, like a lot of the images that you're going to see, a lot of the videos that you're going to see are going to be Hamas propaganda, very deliberately so. So I don't appreciate being accused of saying things that I haven't said, or of holding beliefs that I clearly don't fucking hold. But yeah, you go off, Kai.
So did you or did you not state that when we have picture evidence of women with blood going down their thighs, that they probably just were sitting in a bunch of blood. Oh, that's probably how it happened. Did you not say that?
I spoke about one particular picture of a woman with a pool of blood at the seat of her pants.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I
And
said we
the
don't
Okay,
only
I'm
know.
going to
eyewitness
call a
account.
flag on this. If we are going to debate if we're going to quibble over this particular individual woman, that's not the. This
I'm
is
not.
not the place.
I'm not here to quibble over it. I just
I'm
think
telling
it's
both
very
of you. I'm not
reasonable to
telling.
say if you don't.
Yeah, I'm not telling.
It,
This is just. If this is the direction you guys are going to go, I don't want to do that. So.
And that's fine.
okay.
I have no real. Well, hold on.
But
And
it's very simple. Do you know that woman was raped?
when didn't we just go through a thing with the whole believe all women, and when we have like,
Did that woman say she was raped?
well, we don't know because she then got
Okay, well,
condemned
I
after.
can't believe her then. So, do you know that woman was raped?
I just said that I don't want to go over
Yeah,
this
I'm not
particular
even. I
thing.
don't want to get into this either.
Vivian,
No,
The
come
answer
on.
is no, right? So the next accusation you have for me.
yeah, honestly, I don't really want to get into.
You were
Well, we
quite
don't
happy
have
to
that.
get into it backstage. Why don't you
I
fucking get into it here? Come on, repeat the things you were fucking saying to me.
because I have respect for Wick, and I don't want to make this whole thing a giant argument and did interrupt his stream.
Nah, mate, you came in screaming bloody fucking
With
murder at
you,
me
yes.
like some
I have no
unhinged fucking lunatic, right? You did that in Wick's server. You did that
Okay.
with one of Wick's regular guests,
But
and
not
dare I say it, star fucking attractions. All right, so you already stuck your fucking dick in the pie. All right, I want to see you fuck it till you come. All right, fucking do it.
Pretty sure I have no interest in putting my dick in places where I don't know where.
Okay, enough. Gang,
Yeah,
thank you for
exactly.
coming on.
Take
I'll
a
see
fucking
those.
hike. You got nothing.
That was a mistake.
That was
That was a mistake. I should not have done
Explosive
that. That
ending.
was a mistake. I apologize. I don't know what I thought maybe they were going to argue about propaganda. They decided not to argue about propaganda. My bad. I think we have time for maybe one more caller. One more caller. Well, let's see what chat's been saying. Max Payne says, "Hey Wick, there needs to be a discussion about collateral damage. Some people seem to have the view that if there is any collateral damage, that means there shouldn't be any military action. Well, guess what? It's open call-ins, so you can come in and tell us about your thoughts on collateral damage. Call in, join the Discord, jump backstage. I'll pull you on, and we can talk about collateral damage.
Post the link?
Yeah, can you post a link in my YouTube chat and
Maybe try.
exclamation Discord chat and exclamation point Discord in Twitch chat, and yeah, we can talk. But here, I'll post it in YouTube.
For some reason, the chat that I sent wasn't the link. I wonder if that has to be changed.
Is my links not working? It might not be.
No,
Oh.
it's mine. Mine's
Oh,
not
okay, okay.
working. Yeah.
What we got? Hello, you're live. You're on air. What do you want?
Hello, Wick. Okay, so essentially, I have a theory. I want to run that theory by you guys. You tell me what you think. I think that essentially that anything bar-like, in my opinion, anything bar-like, essentially an invasion of Palestine.
Anything barring an invasion of Palestine.
Yes, because like anything barring an invasion of Palestine to sort of like go in, remove Hamas as the leadership of the area. Like, say, for instance, if Israel just does strikes, kills a whole bunch of people, this is just essentially a perpetuation of the conflict. I really think that there needs to be something more permanently done to ensure that this sort of thing doesn't happen in the future. Now I'm talking about I want that without having to like kill a whole bunch of people. You know what I mean? I think that if things, the way I see this panning out is that I think that Israel is going to bomb a whole bunch of civilian buildings, aiming for they'll be targeting legit targets of Hamas, but by doing that, a whole bunch of civilians are going to die, and that really that sort of thing is unacceptable.
First of all, thank you for the 300 bits. You have collateral damaged me. Maybe I have. I don't disagree with you. I think that Hamas needs to go, right? But this response by Netanyahu is not the way, right? This whole kind of bombing, collateral, all this stuff is not the way, right? It needs to be measured. It needs to be proportionate. They need to go door to door, use their intelligence apparatus to identify members of Hamas and those connected with Hamas that aided and abetted in this attack, remove them and bring them to justice. Hamas is not allowed to hold political office anymore in Gaza. Hamas has lost that right? And that's what needs to happen. This indiscriminate bombing is not the way, right? That is a horror as well.
I would also say that I think that the indiscriminate bombing, while I do think that Israel is justified to defend itself, I think that the bombing in itself, if that's all they're going to do, is just a massive perpetuation of this conflict.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
If
that's all it is they simply bomb, and then leave. Yes, you're right. It's not going to work, first of all, because it's like fleas, right? Like the Hamas is just going to go where the bombs are not, right? They're just going to leave. They're going to go away. The people funding Hamas, right, are in Gaza right now. Okay, let's be clear. The people funding Hamas are not in Gaza, right? They're not going to be taken out. They're in Iran mostly.
No.
That's not going to stop it. And even if you do remove Hamas, they're just going to fund the next group and we'll have the same problem or a very similar one. So that needs to be dealt with too. That's much more complex though, because Iran is, that's a can of worms, right? But that something needs to be done.
Well, I don't have any takes on what should be done about Iran. But I think with Palestine, I think the only sensible way is an invasion and probably an occupation for some time. I think anything else will just in 5 years, there'll be another massive demolition of buildings. Some Hamas militants will be killed. More civilians will be killed. It will just continue on like this. And there'll be hatred because of the way it was
Go ahead,
the campaign was done.
Go ahead, Zephyr.
The way I see it, there's three broad ways to tackle this issue. Number one is probably this would probably take the longest, is a peaceful solution in which you're genuinely training a new generation of people in the ways of a liberal democracy / tolerance towards Israel, things like that. Number two is a more violent means, but I don't see it as a permanent solution. I think that this would you are creating two problems with that. Number one, children who are seeing their relatives and neighbors getting killed by Israel, they're going to be the next generation of a Hamas or another terrorist organization. Or pretty much they're going to gain sympathy and attract more terrorists to join in their cause. And the last one is a more, like you said, invasion and occupation, but the occupation cannot be for some time. It will have to be, you would have to occupy Palestine for 15 to 20 years and
I
make sure
think, yeah.
that the kids are being trained or kids are being educated in a way that they're not then immediately converting into a Hamas.
I
And
don't.
that is in addition to cutting off the financial and supply chains that they're getting from Iran, Russia, and whatever.
Without sort of like without control of like Palestine though, essentially you're going to find that at this point it's going to be very easy for any sort of like intelligence apparatus to find disaffected groups and arm them and convince them and train them and convince them to attack Israel. This is why I think that well, I think your number 3 option's perfect, but it's just it seems that this when I say it's perpetuating itself, you're killing civilians, which sort of like breeds hatred. It breeds despair. It's giving people nothing left to, it's taking away their lives, and that is bringing about more sort of violence because these people are then going to take up
terrorist
arms.
creation machine.
And
that's it. That's why you need to go the next step.
I'm probably contradicting what I just said is, well, the US tried occupying like in Iraq and in Afghanistan for like 15 years and nothing came of it. The cultural pull
wait
towards
nothing came of it. No, that's not true. Like it was bad, right? Like we had some issues with it, but nothing came of it. Come on, right?
Well, I'm kind of exaggerating, but let's be honest, US did not achieve most of the targets that it was
it did not.
aiming
That is
for, right?
correct. Yep.
So there's a lot of like cultural and historical pulls that obviously cannot be overtaken or cannot be overridden just through occupation and through education.
Well,
so it's an extremely it's something very deeply embedded which has to be addressed. And that's the unfortunate bit.
That this isn't like this. The US is like Afghanistan is in the middle of like almost the other side of the opposite world to the US. For the US to even get to Afghanistan, they need to go through other countries. So it's even a landlocked country. Like getting people to Afghanistan is already like an incredibly difficult proposition. I think Palestine would be a lot easier than Afghanistan, just simply because of the closeness of the borders. And if something isn't done,
I don't know about that.
I say easier. I mean, like, listen, I say easier, but if this is relative, it's not going to be an easy thing at all. But I do think that, as I said, I do think that this, like, without removing Hamas, you're just perpetuating the violence. I think
I'll agree with that. Hamas has to go. Hamas is done. Hamas has to go. No solution. Just real quick, no solution short of Hamas having to go is okay with me. Anything less than that is not going to work. That said, you can remove Hamas without killing hundreds and hundreds of civilians. That is possible to do. You just have to do it, right? You have to, it's going to be harder to do. It's going to be more complex to do. It's going to take longer to do, but you can absolutely do it if you have the will and the manpower and the material. And I promise you, like, if that was Israelis' stated goal, right, and they were asking for aid in order to accomplish that through those means, which I suggested earlier, going door to door, using intelligence to identify Hamas operatives, using intelligence to identify people who funded, planned, and executed the attack, as well as those connected to them, I think that they would get the aid they need. Now, it's up to them to spend it on that, or whether Netanyahu would actually spend it on that rather than just bomb people indiscriminately. It's a different question, right? That's what makes this problem harder, is because Netanyahu's a bad actor in this. But yeah. Thank you for coming on, and we're going to
thank you, Wick. Thank you, Zephyr. You have a wonderful...
To the void.
You cut him off. You didn't let him finish.
He said thank you.
Okay.
I said you're welcome. What do you do with the Palestinians who support Hamas? Well, you don't bomb them. That's what you don't do, okay? You don't bomb them. That's not what you do. Well, you show them a better way. And I know that sounds loosey-goosey, leafy-weefy kind of deal, but I promise you, right? If Hamas is removed and Israel stops doing all its oppressive shit and stops mistreating the people of Gaza and actually provides them with the material and the stuff that they need, again, in a controlled manner, the opinions will change. The hearts and the minds will be won over. Now you won't get them all. You won't get them all. There's still going to be dangers. There's still going to be conflict. But again, the answer to this cannot be genocide. It cannot be. That is not acceptable. There is no acceptable answer that includes genocide here. Okay? There's no acceptable answer that includes the death of 900 plus civilians here, on either side of the equation, right? If civilians have to die to accomplish your goals, change your fucking goals. Okay? Simple as. Thank you, Socrates, for the subscription. 16 months. Still going for a bit. If you call in quick, buddy, if you call in quick, then we could talk, because I'd love to talk to you. You're one of the more level-headed people. I guess I'll say, like, Zephyr, I know if you have to go, you have to go. I understand. I'm not going to keep you here.
I can stick around.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a disappointing few days. It's been a very disappointing few days. Seeing people cheer on the glassing of Gaza, and then seeing other people cheer on the massacre that was done against those the music festival goers and so, like, everyone just picking a sports team and rah-ing it has been one of the most black-pilling things and experiences I've ever, for me. I thought people were, I don't know why, maybe I'm a fool, but I thought people were better than that. I honestly did. But they're not. They're sitting there, they pick a team, Israel or Palestine, they rah, and then they justify anything that gets their team across the finish line or appears to get their team across the finish line. Again, Hamas has signed the death warrant of Gaza, and that's horrific. Netanyahu is not going to respond proportionally. He's not going to respond reasonably. He's not going to respond in a way that doesn't involve war crimes. And that is also horrific. It is a lot. It is a lot. Oh, come on, Socrates. I'm trying to fill dead air here until you get here. Give us...
All right, what can I do to help you? My God.
Tell us a joke. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. Give us your best joke. Quickly.
Oh, no, I'm really terrible at jokes.
I'll make it better.
Improv.
I'll make it better.
No, I can't deal with the pressure. No way.
Under pressure. Brendan Hoover says, most of the Mideast wants Israel off the map. I don't know how Israel's supposed to defend themselves without drastic measures. I mean, there's that too, right? There are state actors, Iran, and other groups who do not want Israel to exist. Absolutely, right? I'm not saying they do nothing. That's not my advice here. They have to. They have to defend themselves. But how you defend yourself matters. What you do matters. Absolutely. Right? How you respond to these things absolutely matters. But go on with your joke, Zephyr. I'm sorry.
Oh, nah. It's not worth it. No way.
Why do fish swim in salt water? Pepper makes them sneeze. Nah. Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good.
I'm laughing to be humble towards you. That was actually a bad joke.
That was my chatter. Okay, I take no responsibility for this. That was good though. I appreciate it, Rando Chatter guy. I appreciate it. Thank you. Socrates, I'm gonna give you about 2 more minutes and then we're gonna end. Sorry. If you get on here quick, we'll have you on. You know my Discord. You're part of my Discord. Jump backstage. You know how to do this. You're not a stranger. Hurry up. Hurry up, brother. Yeah, it's we are going to see in the next few weeks.
Oh, Socrates is here.
Okay, beautiful. I don't have to fill any more dead air. What up, Socrates? I waited just for you, friend.
Hey, how we going? How we doing?
You are super low. Can you turn yourself up?
Testing. Oh, Jesus.
Keep
Okay.
Up. Take your volume and turn it up like 5 notches. $10 from Brian. Here's how I pick a side. If you were stranded in the Middle East, what country would you rather be stranded in? The answer here is clear. Thank you for the $10, Brian. Socrates.
My shit might be
Oh,
fucked. How's this?
it's a little
Is that
better. It's a little better.
it's
It's
better?
good enough.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah.
I'll just turn you up on my end too. So
Sorry about that.
it is what it is.
Yeah. So I did a brief stream earlier. I think I'm probably in a similar place that you were at, where I honestly I haven't been reading about the conflict, the most recent conflict. I haven't been streaming about it until just today. I think part of me honestly just doesn't even want to talk to people who want to talk about it within the first few days, because it's the people who have the most kind of knee-jerk reaction with, like you said, kind of rah sports team, cheering for murder of somebody. Um, and I wanted to take the time to step back, and then I was talking to friends, having friends kind of look to me as somebody to advise them and inform them on what's going on, and so kind of decided it's time to start that process.
You are correct. Like, I am hosting a discussion, an official discussion on this in 2 days. We're gonna have Dylan Burns, Lonerbox. We're gonna have Counterpoints. We're gonna have Omar. We're gonna have Ali. We're gonna have Stardust. It will be. We have supporters of both sides on there, right? There will be a discussion. It won't be Mimi. It'll be a serious discussion. I can't promise it won't be heated. It obviously will, but it won't be. No one's coming in costume. Let's say that. But the reason I scheduled it so far out was because of the same reason. I wanted to give time for people's heads to cool a little bit on this, because I don't know if you are on Twitter or not, but watching
Thankfully, no.
Watching some of the responses has been the people who the day after are saying, "What did you think decolonization would look like, you losers?" Like, and getting thousands of likes, thousands of retweets, right? The people who were saying stuff like, "Well, you know what? They're fair targets. Everyone in Israel is a colonizer and a settler. They're all fair game. None of them are civilians." Saying shit like that it's just been a step too far for me, right? Like, if I'm not on those people's side, right? Whatever side they're on, I'm not on it, okay? And I think that, like, a lot of people who are anti-Israel, who are pro-Palestine, also condemned that kind of rhetoric, also condemned the people coming out like that. And thankfully, right? Because for a little bit there, I was thinking I was the only sane person left on the left, or even left tangential. It's been bad. A lot of people have told on themselves, and I won't forget it, right? I won't forget like, the next time they come up to me crying because I have someone on my stream they don't like, I'm just going to remind them their response to 900 plus people getting butchered and saying, "Yeah, this is where you want to put your energy, and look at how you responded to that." I'm not going to take them seriously ever again, right?
Yeah. So there's the main thing that I like to bring to these conversations is the fact that there's multiple facts that are in tension with each other. And generally what people who respond very quickly is they'll pick just one of those facts to respond to in order to not deal with the tension. So they might choose Palestinians have been subjugated by Israelis. And so the attacks from Hamas onto Israeli civilians, that's justified. That's might be the fact that they take. Or somebody who's much more dogmatically pro-Israel might say, okay, well, Israel has been attacked, so some kind of retaliation against Palestinian civilians is therefore justified. And I feel like the only way to gain an understanding of the conflict and the only way to make some kind of progress is to put together a list of, at an objective level, kind of undisputable facts, as many as possible, and then try to sit with that tension. The tension that Palestinians, including Hamas, have hurt Israelis, Israelis, including the IDF, have hurt Palestinians. The response from Israel to retaliate and go in and kill a bunch of civilians, and they'll probably kill more, is a predictable response to the Hamas attacks. And the Hamas attacks themselves are maybe, I'll say predictable, even though the
Yeah, like
Israeli intelligence forces didn't
I'm going to
predict
take
this
issue with that. This
year-long
is like
plan.
the most horrific amount of casualties
Mhm.
that Israel has faced, and I think
Yeah.
since its inception. I can't
think
think of
since
another
since the
incident.
Yom
Maybe
Kippur
the
War.
Yom Kippur War,
Maybe the-
maybe, right? But even then, I don't think so, right?
And that was like multiple like nations invading, like actual real like kind of nation
Yeah.
states. Um, but at the very least, you can say that when you push a people to the brink of desperation, while Benjamin Netanyahu has been intentionally propping up Hamas effectively compared to the much more moderate Palestinian Authority in order to marginalize them. This is a, I don't know how you say predictable without saying predictable, but this is a result that you see. All of the ingredients are plainly there.
Like I said earlier, I'm not sure with like Iran is cheering right now. Iran is getting everything they ever wanted from all of this because again, they fund and back Hamas. Right? Let's be clear.
Yeah, they fund them back
There
and
are
train them
reports,
to Hamas,
unconfirmed,
and
right? There's
Hezbollah is directly an Iranian
yeah.
operation.
There's unconfirmed reports. I don't know how true this is, right? But that this was planned by Iran. Iran had its fingers in actually planning this attack, which again makes sense because it ticks all the boxes that Iran wants in the region, right? It ticks all the boxes. I don't know if this
So
speculation. I want to be clear.
Said the opposite. They speculated in the other direction that Iran didn't directly have a hand in planning like this operation, but like background training and supplying, and obviously cheer on this operation. But whether they directly were part of the planning, hard to know. What I saw was the opposite, but that's not really here.
It's probably gonna. We'll find out in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah.
But.
So I think the main thing that we can do as lefties in the space is to attack the dogmatism on both sides, because the people who are cheering for bloodshed on either side are clearly the people who are contributing the most damage to the conversation. So somebody who says, well, Israeli retaliation is predictable. You poke the bear, they're going to attack you, whatever. I think it's important for people to step back and think about, well, why is it so predictable that if Hamas kills Israeli civilians and we condemn that and we say it's bad and it's evil and it shouldn't happen, what does it say about the Israeli state and IDF character that it's predictable that they would go and commit murders in retaliation? And why is that something that first of all, that we don't call terrorism? Why is that something that we accept as part of the status? I'm not saying that you're accepting that, but why is that people who are dogmatically pro-Israel accept as part of the equation? Because the reason that this is getting so much and so much escalation of emotions is that the unique thing about this specific conflict between Palestine Israel, or Hamas Israel, is that the death toll, at least temporarily, was higher on the Israeli side.
Also the spike nature of it. And what I mean by that is it all happened in a single
it was very
night.
rapid.
It was this shocking like blitzkrieg of murder and mayhem. That, and also the response by a lot of thought leaders on the left and things like that, was also added to the shock and dismay. Again, it became this almost kind of like it's not out of pocket to call it Israel's 9/11, right? I don't think that's out of pocket. It's that kind of thing.
There's some parallels. It's kind of like there's like the arguments that people made that like 9/11 is the result of American foreign policy versus
there's a lot.
Israel is
right?
almost
It's layers.
internal
There's layers,
policy,
right? There's layers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that like to me, While again, I think the IDF has done some terrible things. I agree with that. I think that the policy that Israel has in place, the settler colonialism policy, has absolutely exacerbated the situation, and caused a lot of the mayhem and chaos and things in Gaza that, again, is bubbling all these things and perpetuating all these things. There is a difference to me when the IDF goes in to destroy the terrorists and they don't care about the civilians that are in their way. That's horrific. That's bad. But there's a difference between that and the Hamas who took out military targets only so that they could go in and kill the civilians, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference
So-
between these two things. They are not the same, right? They're
So
both
that's-
bad, but
Mhm.
one is significantly worse.
So that's something that I would question. I would question the clarity of that difference. There are differences. For there's differences in the capabilities of both sides, but the differences in terms of targeting, I don't believe are at the very least as stark as you painted. So Israel has targeted hospitals, has targeted mosques, in the so the last big Palestinian nonviolent attempt at a demonstration, the Great March of Return, was met with Israeli snipers targeting healthcare workers and journalists in order to increase the death toll, in order to suppress information that they couldn't control about the situation being released. Israel has bombed, in this instance, hospitals, mosques, civilian buildings.
Let me ask you
They
a
do
question on
state-
that, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Go ahead.
If during World War II, the SS had set up in a hospital, and they
Mhm.
were, again, using it as a base of operations to exterminate Jewish people during during World War II, would that be a okay target for the Allies to bomb?
Yeah, so I mean, I can address this. I can address this head on, which is the question of Hamas using civilian population as human shields, right? That's what this is referencing.
Yes.
So, I'm not aware of validated instances. I'm not saying that there are any, but I'm not aware of validated instances where the IDF has evidenced this. I know of a number of situations where they've claimed this, but they haven't provided any proof. International organizations have looked into it and haven't been able to find any evidence. I know that's something that they say, and obviously it's the case that
Well, the UN has
for Hamas,
Seven's saying the UN has a report on this. Seven, can you actually link that
yeah.
to me, please? Oh, also thank you for the raid, Chinese people. 𝕵𝖎𝖎 need mama or no need dada? We're your daddy. I'm your daddy.
I'm your daddy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm your daddy. Okay.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to drop out. I know I could stay,
Okay,
but
Zephyr, always a pleasure. I'll see you later, buddy.
take care.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you for the Chinese. I am woefully cold on my Chinese, but I was able to interpret that. Okay, so 你是我的爸爸. So yeah, Seven. Can you link me that report, or even Seven, if you want to jump on for a minute, and talk with us, you're more than welcome. You have more information on this than I do, but yes, there is at least, as I'm aware, credible information that Hamas does use human shields. Right? They set themselves up intentionally in apartment complexes, hospitals, and schools in order to use as bases of operations. Right? And also in a lot of cases, unfortunately, when they will hide in Palestinian homes, and the Palestinians themselves will make excuses for them, like, "Oh, this is just my cousin, my brother, he's visiting," etc. Right? Like that. There's been reports of that happening. All that said, right? We can still condemn it when it happens because, again, we can acknowledge that the IDF does not take the proper precautions, and the IDF in many cases just does not do its due diligence. And as you mentioned, in the purposeful targeting and assassination of journalists and medical workers, that is an abomination. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. But yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, how are we doing on time? I know you want to wrap up soon, but I don't know what your or if you just didn't want to have dead time.
I mean, like, let's give it another 10 minutes and see how I feel.
Okay, that sounds
cool.
Great. Yeah, for sure. Um, so I would say this isn't necessarily even that this is kind of a contention, I guess, between us on a factual matter that we've both maybe kind of heard one way or another. I wouldn't say that I know like absolutely for a fact
Here, I'll link
what
you the
the
report I
percentage
just
of this
got
occurring
linked.
is.
How's that?
Please, yeah. Is that in your
Keep in mind, I
or
can't verify this. I've literally just opened it, right? But
Mhm.
7, I trust 7, and 7 wouldn't like fuck with me, right? But just take that with a grain. Here you go.
Is that okay? Perfect. Yeah.
It's from the United Nations General Assembly in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas rocket fire is a double war crime. And it goes through, right? And that's actually pretty short. Yes, Hamas commits double war crimes by targeting. This is from the UN Assembly, by the way. By targeting Israeli civilians and using its own civilians as human shields, Hamas rocket fire constitutes a double war crime. Hamas not only deliberately attacks Israeli civilians, but intentionally exposes its own civilians to the deadly consequences of the hostilities it provokes itself. In truth, it is Hamas, and only Hamas, that is illegally attacking civilians. This is a quote from the illegitimate instinct to delegitimize Israel. And this was again quoted in a UN report. So if that matters, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to spend time like while I'm talking to you googling and trying to find like counter
Sure.
examples. So I guess there's like, I think when people look at stories, when you or I or other people look at stories, this kind of question of motivation, that it's always the hardest thing to prove, and it's always something that has kind of an overarching feel on how you how some story hits you, whether you feel like you're more or less likely to give kind of benefit of the doubt to one side or the other when you look at their motivations. So this question of whether Israel is trying to hit military targets, and there's like multiple levels. So it's like the worst would be they're like trying to hit
they're purposely
civilian
targeting
targets
civilians. They're like, oh, look, a
yeah.
school, let's bomb it, right? That would be pretty bad. That'd be worse. So yeah, if you can.
And the worst is like we're targeting a hospital because we love to kill
Yes,
this type of
yes,
people.
yes.
And the less worse would be like we're intentionally targeting, but as more of kind of a strategic thing to demoralize them
Sure,
and whatever.
there are layers.
And yeah, there's layers. And then it would be like we're not really targeting them, but we're not really being that careful. And then there would be like we're targeting them, we're being that careful, but we still hit some stuff. And there's like we never hit civilian targets really. So I think we agree that like best layer probably isn't hit. And then this question of like, are they?
Yeah, in my perfect world, and again, I'm just an American here. I don't have skin in the game that they do. So take that as it said. Like it's door to door, right? It's none of this bombing stuff. You door to door it. You find out. You use verifiable intelligence that you can verify, and then you bring out the actors specifically. You do your very best to limit civilian casualties to the very, very bare minimum. That said, I have no skin in this game, and this was an immediate response that's needed to happen, right? Like they couldn't do nothing, I guess, right? You would agree with that. Like Israel had to respond to this in some way. You would agree?
So I don't agree with that, and I feel
really
I feel like that's the biggest double I don't know if it's the biggest. It's an extremely large double standard that I see, where critiques of Palestinian activity, the kind of thing that I will argue with my family about at holidays, things like that, and I've argued with my uncle a lot about Israel. Is this like, okay, well, the Palestinians haven't tried nonviolence. They need to try nonviolence. They need to try nonviolent resistance. If they were less violent, Israel would be nicer, etc. I can't for the life of me understand.
That's not what I'm asking.
Israel is not. Well, wait. Let me finish, and I think I'll be responding to what you're going to say. I can't for the life of me understand why Israel is given a pass for not trying nonviolent resistance. And using your 9/11 analogy, I think is a good one, because when 9/11 happened, the world was with New York City. The world saw this tragedy and had nothing but support for America for 9/11, through to Afghanistan, and then at Iraq, things started to change. It started to be seen as a war of aggression, and the support and the kind of like empathy for the lives lost and the American suffering at large through 9/11 was diminished, and a kind of goodwill that arrived as a result of this started to go away. And I think there's something to be said about at least taking a step back and thinking through that, and taking a longer time to answer that question of, did Israel have to have a response, or what kind of response did it have to have? Did it have to go into Gaza and bomb? So let's say that it's a fact that there were Hamas militants in all of the hospitals and mosques that the IDF bombed, in what I've seen called
But
retaliation.
you're taking
Okay.
steps forward, right? And I want to just
Okay.
start
Okay.
on the
Okay. Go ahead.
foundational level, right?
Mhm.
Hamas, and I'm just gonna make sure you do agree that it was Hamas that came in and killed
Hamas and Hezbollah. Yeah.
thousand plus people the other day,
Mhm.
right? That I think the number's up to 1,000 now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And there's still fighting at like a soldier level along the borders.
Sure, but they broke in and they massacred civilians. We're not talking soldiers. We're talking civilians, right? You agree that happened? That Hamas did it
Absolutely.
specifically.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I entirely
Sure,
condemn that
sure,
as well.
sure. I
Just
know,
to be
I know you're a great guy, Socrates. I believe in you, right? On that. But I ask this, right? There has to be a response to that from the government. They have to do something. People, a group, an organized group came in and killed 1,000 of their citizens. They have to do something, right? Some response, whether that be violent or not. There has to be a response, correct?
When you say response, I want to ask you, how broad are you asking that
I'm
question?
asking what your response would be. Like, if you are king of Israel, well, that has some connotations. If you were president of Israel right now, right? If you were president of Israel right now, and this had just happened, what do you do?
So, I can say what I would not do, which is retaliate.
Okay, what do you mean by retaliate?
So, when I say retaliate, it's actually a little bit similar to what the American response generally is. If some nation, trying to remember, this happened like a few years ago, maybe under Trump, Syria or somewhere in Iraq. Some American soldiers were attacked and responded by bombing something. There's a kind of like standing assumption for Western nations, with which Israel is basically included. If you fuck with us, we're gonna fuck you back. That's kind of like a standard assumption, which is why you could say that the Israeli response is predictable. Right? Are you with me so far?
I get what you're saying. So first of all, 200 bits. The current death toll from the Saturday attack is upwards of 1,200 now. Hopefully, it will not continue to rise. Thank you for that information. When I say response, right? That Hamas. Let me ask you it this way.
Sure. Yeah.
Hamas. Does the Israeli government have not only the right but the responsibility to remove them?
I think, okay. Let's just look at this piece by piece. I think we could probably move forward answering this if we look at it starting with agreement and then moving toward what's maybe more contentious.
Well, we started at the agreement. We both think they attacked Israel, and then we both don't justify that attack.
Sure, but
it's not justified.
In
it's
the
bad.
Israeli response. So, what kind of response would you have? What would be justified? I think we would probably agree that a government has the, I guess I would say, yeah, authority and duty to have some kind of response in order to protect the safety of its citizens. I think
Yes.
we would
Yep.
probably agree with
Yep.
that, right? And then the question is, what is the limit of what actions could clearly be seen as protection, but no more, right? That would be the kind of like totally uncontroversial place where I think reasonable people probably couldn't disagree, right? So what's that line where if Israel could
I'll
um,
be honest with
deploy
you.
just a dome that
Sure.
like boom,
I do
totally
not
cut off
think it's a
all.
reasonable position to anything short of Hamas goes away. I don't think anything short of that is reasonable. I think that like there is no reasonable response that could involve anything short of the removal of Hamas, right? Them ceasing to exist as an organization. That's just the bare minimum of response that I think that Israel not only has a right to do, but the duty to do, because Hamas have butchered thousands of its citizens, right? 1,000 of its citizens.
Sure.
Without they not only did it, but they did it on purpose, right? Without remorse. They cheered it happening.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that they have to go away, right?
So my issue with that, I'm not saying that that's I won't even pass judgment on whether that's like right or wrong what you're saying, but just simply to point out the difficulty of that being the mindset for this situation is that for Palestinians, when Israelis or the Israeli government or early Zionist groups in the Nakba do this to Palestinians, if that logic holds, if that's the response that groups should have, then removing the Israeli government would be the duty and something that they have authority to for the Palestinians. And
if Hamas,
my response would be is that response makes the situation not de-escalatable, not solvable.
If Hamas,
whether it's right or wrong, I don't even know how.
If Hamas had targeted only military targets, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? Let's be real. Like I'd be like, okay, that's fair. If Hamas had only targeted IDF structures and facilities, if they had only gone after tanks and Humvees and vehicles that held IDF soldiers, we would be having a very different conversation, right? That is war. It happens. It's not good, but it's there is. I can imagine a world where that would be justified, right? Absolutely. That's not what they did. They, again, and this is, again, up until 2017, I believe, was in their charter, that their stated goal was to kill every living Jew in Israel, to wipe it off the face of the earth.
Power? That was in their charter until they were elected?
No, they were elected in 2006. This was their charter in 2017.
Okay.
Up until 2017, where they tried to make good, right, a little bit. They tried to kind of like get more foreign support, etc. So they kind of softened their image a little bit. So they removed these things from their charter and things like that. But obviously, it didn't remove it from their mindset. Like, this is their stated goal for Hamas. And again, I want to make a very clear distinction. Hamas is not Palestine. Hamas is a terrorist organization that exists within Palestine. Okay.
Well, yeah. So I'm with you in terms of I don't like the idea of equating the actions of Hamas with how all Palestinians should be treated, and at the same time, we do have to contend with the fact that citizens of Gaza elected Hamas.
They elected him once, but then they never held elections again. Hamas was like, okay, we're done with elections now. I would contend to you that the Palestinians are a victim of Hamas, right, in this. Like, Hamas has victimized them. They are at the will and mercy of foreign powers because, again, Hamas is funded by foreign powers. That these Palestinians are being used as pawns by Hamas and other foreign entities that fund Hamas in order to fulfill their goals. Like, this is whether or not, right, they hate Israel or not is beside the point in this case. Like, there are foreign entities, Iran chief among them, that want Israel not to exist. Okay?
Sure.
And they will fund any group willing to make that happen. They just so happen to be funding and fuzzling money, weapons, arms, material into Hamas so that they can cause the kind of chaos that you see right now and also bait Israel into the kind of retaliation that they are doing currently. And like I said, I'm not here to cheer on Israel. I am not on a team. I am simply pointing out that the continuous degradation of both sides cannot continue. And as long as Hamas remains, it will continue, right? So even if Israel, like you've heard that saying, right? If Israel stopped fighting, there would if Hamas stopped fighting, there would be peace. But if Israel stopped fighting, they would cease to exist. There's truth in that.
I disagree. I heartily disagree. I think that
what happens? Okay, let me ask you this:
they
they free Gaza today. They end the occupation tomorrow, right? What happens?
I don't think that would be a good idea.
Yes, you don't think that would be a good idea? I wonder why.
Wait. Okay, so so we need to look at these things a little bit critically. Have I heard that slogan? Of course. I grew up Jewish, heavily propagandized into, Israel can do no wrong. You're just defending themselves. Palestine never existed. I heard all these talking points. When Palestinians attempt nonviolent resistance, Israel responds with violence. When Palestine does nothing, their homes are bulldozed, people are shot at by Israeli extremists, blown up by Israeli extremists. So the main thing that I want to bring into this conversation is that these things are not so simple. This idea that Israel only ever responds to attacks from Palestinians, I disagree fundamentally that that's the case.
I did not say that's the case, right? Like, okay. Israel is an aggressor in many ways. That said, in this situation, and as we stand now, today, there is no path forward, at least for the foreseeable future, that involves Gaza being set out, because the people of Israel, right or wrongly, believe they just saw what happens when you let Gaza out. That's what they believe.
I don't think that. So they can believe that, but I think what it's important to talk about is what kind of things are factual, or what we can verify, or a little bit more. I don't want to say this denigratingly, but reality-based statements. I don't think that there's, unless I'm unaware.
Sure, but unless you're taking into let me finish it. Unless you're taking into consideration the will of the people and the state of the people in both sides of these things, you're not taking reality or facts into the situation. Facts do not exist outside of the context of how people are. Yeah,
I just want to respond to the factual statement that maybe I literally haven't been following this closely in the last year, so I might be totally unaware, but I'm not aware that there was suddenly a new unblockading, that this was the result.
Oh, no. That wasn't what I was saying, right? I was saying that Hamas got out of Gaza and did all this. So the question becomes, what do you think the people of Israel are going to want to happen now? You can understand why the average citizen in Israel would see this and say, yo, we're never letting them out, right? You can understand? Yeah, it's horrific. That's part of the crime. That's part of what Hamas did. That's part of the horror that Hamas inflicted, is they made it so that this is more cemented in the mind of the average Israeli citizen. And that's
absolutely. I would never discount that that's a problem, but I find this to be a little bit one-sided, which I think is a detriment to both understanding and to progress. When Israel bulldozes homes, bombs hospitals, shoots journalists, even American journalists, civilians, denies requests for infrastructure, denies requests for building homes, for medical treatment. That cements in the minds of Palestinians that in order to get out of this extremely desperate situation where they are in with no pause being subjugated by Israel. So the people of Gaza for 16 years have been unable to leave, have had very little potable water, very little access to electricity, extremely high unemployment, not much access to sanitation, and a blockade that has been universally the world over been described as not as illegal and immoral. So even just aid getting in, which Israel claims for security purposes is being denied. We could go into a lot of detail whether that's factual or not, but it's an extremely desperate situation that is being enforced by Israel. And obviously the question of motivation, some people say genocide, some people say security. That's a complicated question to answer. But the fact is, as a result of Israel policy, people in Gaza are in a very desperate situation, and to look only at the mindset of Israelis as a result of Hamas actions and to ignore the human element and the human suffering and the agency of Palestinians as a result of Israeli action, I think is just missing some.
I suppose no, you're right. We need to take into account the mindset of the average Gazan citizen who's being told every day, right, that it's Israel's fault, right, and it may even be Israel's fault, right? But this is the Hamas.
It may even be Israel's fault. I just.
Okay, I'll start catching it.
Yeah.
It is Israel's fault, right?
Yeah.
It is Israel's fault. But, and here comes the but, okay? I can put myself in the mindset of a president who has to make a hard decision and declare a war, make a decision, a tough call, right? That would put lives at risk. I can put myself in that mindset. I could put myself in the mindset of a soldier who's asked to do something very wrong, right? And wrestling with that decision and like, oh, should I obey the order and things like that. What I cannot do is put myself into the position or the mindset of someone who is suffering and thinking, well, the way out is to kill and rape this kid. That's what I'm going to do. I cannot put myself in that mindset. I can put I just cannot understand it on a fundamental level. What would make me want to do that to a child?
Well, so I think there's two pieces to that. I think there's committing extremely horrific war crimes with a level of bloodthirst that I think cannot ever be justified in probably any circumstance. So the question of like, if you were, in a death camp, if you were in Auschwitz and you had a chance, you got some weapons, you were able to overpower the guards, would you be justified ever in torturing or raping any of those guards?
No.
You might be justified in shooting them.
Yeah, you shoot them. Make sure that they stop, right?
But you would never be justified in,
in raping them. There's
in raping them, mutilating them,
right?
So that's like one question. I don't think that could ever be justified or ever excused or ever. I don't think there's anything to talk that back ever. The question of can you or I relate to being in the situation of somebody who is in a death camp or on a slave plantation or living in Gaza? I think on that I can say for myself, I can't put myself into that mindset.
I think it's a mistake though, because I hear this sometimes, right? Like you can't tell the oppressor how to fight against the oppressed how to fight against their oppressor. Right? I hear that all the time. I reject that. Yes, I can. If the way you fight against your oppression is to kill and murder civilians, then you deserve to be oppressed. I'm going to be right there. I'm going to take a very strong stance. If what you have to do to end your oppression is to kill a kid, then you probably deserve to be oppressed. I don't know what to tell you. And that's a strong statement, but what Like, do you disagree? Like,
Well, let's just take a look at that and see if that makes sense. I actually don't know. I haven't. Do I agree or disagree with that statement? Like, so let's take something that is feels kind of less charged, and we probably have more kind of historical perspective. So if you know, during American slavery era, if the slaves had to maybe let's leave rape aside, because I think that it could never be really like
okay,
productive.
well, like,
even
we're
toward
leaving
any,
it aside, but they're not.
um,
They're not. This is part and parcel, right? Of the
I'm leaving it aside because I don't think we have any disagreement. I don't
Okay,
think we
fair
have any
enough. You're just
Yeah.
like, if you have to
That's
rape
just like,
someone to
no.
get out of your oppression, you deserve to be oppressed.
Well,
Got you.
I don't think that situation could ever exist where you would have to, right? Like where that could be instrumental to your freedom, to kill somebody. We can imagine.
Well, I
slavery
can look. I'll steel
you could
man
have
this,
to kill
and
Okay,
gang.
go
Remember,
ahead.
I'm not going to be getting monetized for this one, so send me those super chats and bits, because this is going to be wild. Hold on to your butts, kings. To be so horrific in your retaliation that they never want to even look at you or oppress you again, that they will remember for generations to come, and they will remember the horror you inflicted when they tried to fuck with you, that would be the steel man for that. I want to reiterate, that's horrific. It's monstrous. I disavow it 100%. But there are some out there who will believe it's justified, right? There will some, we saw them argue for this, right? Like, no, you got to make it hurt. Suffering's the point.
So is your position that like logically speaking, at like a trolley problem level, you can imagine a coherent scenario in which that like tactically could be sound?
Yes, but
That,
it doesn't matter. Like,
but
even if it works, it's still unjustifiable.
Even if it worked and were necessary,
it's still unjustifiable. Never, under no circumstance. Yeah, if like someone was on here earlier saying, "Oh, what are they supposed to do? Just take it?" Unironically, yes. If the only option you have other than just taking it is to murder children, take it. Take it. I am going to tell you to do that. Right? If that's the choice, if that's the options you have, and the only option you have is to murder a bunch of kids, then no, you take it.
You would say just die.
Yes. Unironically. If you have to murder kids to get your way, yes. Just lose.
I don't think I feel comfortable making that statement either way when it comes to so again, going back to so let's say in order to get the situation with Israel, what makes this, I don't know if you're looking at the clock and you have to jump out.
No, it's fine. I'm just, someone's tagging me saying they won in the debate. I don't know you, buddy. Great. I don't know if you're going to be Yelly Screamy or Good Faith, because I like Socrates. Socrates, gang, funny story. Socrates was my first follow on Twitch, right? The first person I ever saw on Twitch, the first person I ever followed on Twitch was Socrates. I was looking for someone else, to be clear. I was looking for Prime Kai, but he's the one I found. And I clicked on his name and I started seeing. So in a lot of ways, he kind of inspired me to start streaming. We've talked. I became part of his community. He's been part of mine. So there's that. I trust Socrates to be genuine because he's a genuine guy. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know you, I don't even know how 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙.
Oh yeah, they asked me if they could join, and I said the same thing. Ask
I don't know you.
I don't know you, first time chatter.
But anyway, but yeah, so you were saying like you wouldn't be comfortable making that statement. I'm comfortable making that statement, I guess. I'm comfortable that there, like, honestly, there are some things I would tolerate if you were being oppressed, right? That the morality, like, you can do some things that, and otherwise I would never be okay with, right? Like, you could, there are some acts that, and in those circumstances, the context justifies it. But there are certain things that are non-justifiable, that regardless of context, unless we're talking some weird sci-fi hypothetical where an alien race comes down and says, kill this kid or we're going to exterminate all the other kids, like, excluding that, okay?
Universe,
yeah, excluding that. Yeah, there's just no context where it's okay. None.
Mhm. You would say killing people in ostensibly military targets who are
Or
not
even connect, like, so
military.
again, if you're being oppressed and there is the military base, okay, that is there, and the military soldiers have their wives and kids in there, right? And you bomb that base, knowing that some of those wives and kids might die. That's a different thing, right? That's a different thing. Well, obviously, best case scenario, don't try to limit that, try to prevent that entirely. But again, right? Like there is levels of allowance if you are like literally being murdered, right? But I think, like, we forget as well that a lot of people in Israel, that's how they view it, that these people are literally trying to wipe them away from the face of the earth, right? This is how they view it. They think they are the
that they are
oppressed.
trying to, and well,
do you disagree? They honestly believe these people want us from the rivers to the sea, or from the desert to the sea, or the mountains to the sea. Palestine will be free. They, like, if you have a group that's leading Palestine who's in their charter, we're going to kill all of you, every single one. You know, right? Like, what do? You don't let it happen, obviously.
Sure. So there's, I think this is a very, I don't want to just like start spewing platitudes about this being a complicated situation. There's a video I want to find and send to you. You know, sometime later you can watch it, or maybe watch it on stream or something. Talking to Israelis on the street about Palestinians, and the sentiments you hear from Israelis is, I'm not saying all Israelis have this perspective, or this is like inherent to Israelis or something like that, but you hear a lot of Israelis talk about basically that sentiment, that Palestinians are animals and they should be wiped out, and we're going to wipe them out. And the thing that I stick on that makes me pause and makes me hesitant.
And I want to be
conclusion.
clear, that's horrific, right? Like,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of stance is bad. We
But
disavow.
But the thing that's the sticking point for me is that on one side, that ethnic cleansing is occurring, and on the other, it isn't. And so I don't ever want to discount what people say, or their rhetoric, or even the actions that they try to take. I don't think that Hamas literally thought that they could, in this attack, like, kill all Israelis. I don't think that, I don't think that in their mind they thought, okay, we will in these few days kill all of Israelis.
Well, there is some evidence. There's some evidence to suggest, and it's very unclear. I want to reiterate that this is unclear. This is early days, so this could absolutely change and things like that. But they thought Hezbollah would come in to help them. Other countries would come in to help them. That this would be a joint kind of thing. They would be the tip of the spear. This would be the signal, and then you would have all these other things joining them in, and it would.
They thought they could trigger some kind of cascade.
$5 from Brendan Hoover. Wick deserves a medal, not to mention my money for having this combo. Keep it up. Thank you. Keep giving me money. That's great.
Yeah. And
but
I want to say to you guys in chat, first of all, sub to Wick.
Yeah.
But I was really happy when I was about to start streaming tonight, and I was like, I'm going to be talking about this. This is a really tough conversation to have, because everybody, so many people are quick to just choose a side, be dogmatically on that side. And I was really happy to see that you were streaming, because I knew you would take a really thoughtful, nuanced perspective on this. So
I mean, I have a clear, like, I'm not a centrist in this. I think that, at least in this instance, Hamas is entirely in the wrong. And Hamas in general is just a horror, right? Because, like, Israelis say that because it's not just about Palestinians. Because if Palestine wasn't an issue, like if they had integrated, or if there was a separate state with Palestine and this wasn't an issue, they would still be surrounded by actors who want them dead, right? Again, Palestinians, I want to reiterate this, I said this before, Palestinians are in many ways a pawn of foreign actors, right? They were a pawn of foreign interests who want Israel gone.
I think there's something to that. And obviously, Iran has a lot, literally and like figuratively and geopolitically invested in like Hamas very directly, and Hezbollah even more
Hezbollah even
directly.
more directly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I worry sometimes when I hear statements like those that what people might take away is that Palestinians themselves are kind of don't know what's going on, or kind of don't have enough reason within what's happening in their lives to have motivation to have some kind of response. I'm not saying that response should be violent or that violence is justified, but to want to have a response to Israeli oppression. I worry about statements that almost make it sound like, like Palestinians are being propagandized the way, like, Fox News viewers are being propagandized, something like that.
First of all, cheeky banter, $5. Wick, gotta say, fam, them kids gotta go if it's me or them type of situation. I did disagree with Buddy too. Israel has a right to respond. Well, fair enough. You disagree with me, you disagree with him, you disagree with everyone. Welcome to the stream.
Even more centrist than either.
True, true. He's taking the Chad centrist position of like, no, the extreme in both directions. Yes.
Both of you are saying that both of everybody else are wrong, and you're saying that each other are wrong. I'm saying that both of you are wrong.
But what bothers me, and it legitimately bothers me, is like, do you not worry about the people who are in Australia chanting "Gas the Jews, gas the Jews"?
Oh yeah,
waving the Palestinian flags, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you not worry about the people in New York City who are laughing and joking and showing pictures of the dead body, saying, "Ha ha, that's your brother, bro. That's your brother," to an Israeli protester? Do you not worry about the people who are speaking at the rallies, saying, "Oh, they killed a bunch of hipsters, ha ha ha," at the rave, right? Like this wave of anti-Semitism. Like, again, like these, legitimately, if these people had the ability to, do you think they would hesitate at all to pull that trigger to end Israel?
Just to clarify, when you say these people, you're saying Hamas. You're not saying like people in Australia or
the people who are cheering this on too would cheer it on when Hamas did it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
like the threat's real. We can't pretend it's not.
Wait. So I'm not at the stage of disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm at the stage of clarifying what you're saying. When you say the threat is real, you're talking about the threat to Israel from Hamas.
From Hamas and the foreign actors that fund Hamas, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You're not saying that you think like necessarily people in Australia are.
No, I don't think. Like, I think the keyboard warriors are going to war on their keyboard. Okay, they're keyboard warriors. Let's be clear. They're not. They're LARPers. Okay, but they do serve an insidious purpose in propping up, giving legitimacy to, and running cover in a lot of circles for Hamas and things like that. There is a very real worry, right, that because of their influence and politics and on peoples, that if Hamas or other foreign actors were to try to do as they say they want to and wipe Israel off the map, that these people would prevent us from intervening. And I think that is a real threat. That is something to be taken seriously, and we cannot discount it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my response to you is actually formulated through. I ended up staying up till like 3 a.m. last night talking to my friend who's Jewish, who's worried about exactly some of these same concerns. Worried about like a big or increased wave of anti-Semitism as a result of this. Who's worried about is the attack from Hamas onto Israeli Jews, is that anti-Semitic in its motivations? I think there's a lot of this going around, and there is a lot of anti-Semitism in the world. That's a fact that we shouldn't leave that out of the equation. And statistically speaking, therefore, some proportion of the people who are supporters of Palestine, some percentage of them must be simply people who hate Jews.
Well, you
Some of
saw
them
the
out there
BLM
have to
poster, right?
be.
So BLM, the official account of BLM, I had to check to make sure because I didn't believe it, right?
It's like a
You
Twitter.
saw this, that they put the flyer out with the hang glider, silhouette of
Yeah.
a hang glider saying
This
"Free
is
Palestine."
from the David Backman. I just watched his. He had like those three things of like the Australians chanting "Gas the Jews," the people in New York City at a rally
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that they kill these hipsters. Yeah, the college group that had something that had the hang glider on
There's
their.
been a
It
few.
would have looked innocuous if it didn't have that hang glider. It would have been like, okay, well, this could be
Free Pal, like,
whatever.
yeah, without the
Then
hang
it had
glider, but the hang glider
yeah.
in there,
Mhm.
there's. Look, we
It's
talk
not
about
good
dog
for that to
whistles.
become a symbol of.
We talk
in
about dog
every way
whistles.
possible. Yeah, in every way possible, it's not good for that to become a symbol. So it's not good for Palestinians or Palestinian freedom or liberation for it to be associated with flying into and murdering civilians. It's not good for levels of anti-Semitism for cheering on murdering of Jews in Israel. That's bad on both counts. But to get back to your question, do I worry about this as from an
Do you
from
feel it's a
perspective?
credible threat?
Mm-hmm. So I am concerned about anti-Semitism.
Not just
Really
concerned. Do you
weird.
feel it's a credible threat that this is something that is a credible threat to the people, to first of all, Jews around the world, and specifically the people of Israel?
Okay, well, I need to answer this a little bit differently, because I think that the situation in Israel is quite different from around the world. I don't think that there's a likelihood that Hamas will come to America, over the border through some migrant caravan and start murdering Jews somewhere. I don't think that that's likely. Something like that. I don't know if that's what you were asking.
Well, I don't think it has to be Hamas that kills the Jewish people in Australia or things like that. I think it could be very well be the people who are chanting "Gas the Jews." That might happen.
Okay.
Right.
So the question is, could those kind of
Mike, let me be very clear with my question.
Elements, could they evolve into?
No, let me be very clear in my question. So there's no misunderstandings. I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. Okay.
Please, yeah.
Do you believe that it is a credible threat, not only to Israel, but to Jews around the world, this rising wave of anti-Semitism that has infiltrated left-wing spaces in the forum and evidenced by people waving the Palestinian flag, shouting "Free Palestine, gas the Jews," with people such as, again, the speaker at the New York City rally saying, "Oh, look at all those hipsters that got killed, ha ha ha." The people who seem very, very comfortable with holding up pictures on their cell phones to counter-Israeli posters saying, "Look at all these dead people, that's your brother, bro, ha ha ha." Like, do you feel this is a credible threat not only to Israel, but to Jewish people around the world?
Yeah. So I could gauge that pretty directly because I am Jewish, and so when I see anti-Semitism, when I see subtle things like people in YouTube comments just saying shekels when they're talking about money, stuff like that, kind of gets to me a little bit. Or there was the guy on YouTube who was talking about Kanye, who was saying, "Oh yeah, the Jews really do control these things, and this isn't even maybe like demonetized or reported or whatever." I take that kind of thing very seriously. I think that absolutely is possible, and we've seen anti-Semitism in the rise, although it's largely seems like it's more of a right-wing thing, although there's a rising anti-Semitism on the left, with regards to Israel-Palestine. My alma mater, actually, there was like somebody from some like pro-Palestinian group who came up to somebody in like a Jewish group and started yelling that they were like an oppressor, something like that. I think that's quite bad. That needs to be curbed. That needs to be called out. But I also need to be clear that in terms of large organizations, state actors, the biggest generator of anti-Semitism that I see in the world right now, leaving aside Kanye West, is Israel. It's Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu and state propaganda explicitly, not subtly, but explicitly saying that by definition, any criticism of the state actions of Israel, the country of Israel, any criticism of that state or its actions is definitionally anti-Semitic. I take that as the biggest generator of anti-Semitism, and it also calls me as a Jewish person who they're basically saying, in your name, we're doing this, or we're using you explicitly as cover for the war crimes that we commit, and saying that, calling out anybody who criticizes that as anti-Semitic. I feel like it's my duty to call out the state of Israel when it does things that are against international law, that are immoral. I don't generally like to get into the word evil because I feel like it's just, you're kind of just saying words. But at a concrete level, using white phosphorus on civilians, bombing civilians, snipers killing civilians, things that are clearly against international law, occupying land through armed conflict, things that are agreed upon illegal under international law. When Israel does those things, I feel like it's my duty to call them out. And so I am concerned about these things, and I really, really mean it when I say that I feel like Israel has done more harm to this. I'm not saying that the people at those rallies, I don't hold them individually accountable for what they're saying. Of course, they have their own autonomy, they have their own responsibility for what they're saying, and what they're saying.
But you don't see any systemic nature in this?
The systemic nature I see is Israel. That's the systemic nature that I see.
Really?
Absolutely.
So you don't see that there's other... okay.
Could there be anti-Semitism within Islamic and Arab communities that makes that like spark, take a much shorter path? There could be, absolutely. I don't doubt
I don't disagree that Israel isn't helping, right? That it exacerbates it.
Anybody when it comes to anti-Semitism.
Truly. I very much disagree. Anti-Semitism has existed before Israel and will exist after it is gone, right? Like, they are not the generator of this. They are exacerbating it, I will agree, in their responses and things like that. Absolutely. If I may finish, right? I think, again, this tendency, right, to kind of just blame Israel for everything. Like, we rightly separate Hamas and Palestine. We rightly separate those actors, right? We rightly say it's complex. It's not all Palestinians, and there's a lot of context in there that makes them behave the way they do. And yet, when it comes to Israel, context goes by the wayside, right? There's no reason why they're doing these things other than, like, they must just hate Palestinians. That's how it seems to me, right? Like, a lot of people talk, right? It seems how you're talking right now. That does seem to be how it's going. And I'm just wondering why you were giving nuance to one side, but it seems like you are not giving nuance to this side at all, right? That they're like, you can imagine being a citizen of Israel and seeing suicide bombings, people coming and murdering, and saying, if we can get there, we're going to kill you, right? And we can see, okay, well, there might be some nuance here as to why we're very much against letting these people out. It's okay to do that, right?
So, I feel like you're responding to something other than what I said.
Well, I'm responding to what you said in that Israel is the reason that there are people shouting gas to Jews in Australia.
No, that's I feel like you missed the main core
Try again.
of what I was saying. And so when I say generators of anti-Semitism, I'm not saying that Israelis are anti-Semitic. I'm not saying that Israelis are saying anti-Semitic things. I'm saying that the state of Israel, the statements made by Benjamin Netanyahu and the state of Israel, when they say that definitionally criticism of our country's actions are anti-Semitic. if you criticize us using white phosphorus on civilian populations, which is a war crime, then that's anti-Semitic. And you can look this up. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not. This is just explicitly, directly, almost word for word what they've said.
I don't.
Barely even
No, I
paraphrasing.
agree with you that they say
Okay,
that, but no one
yeah.
takes that serious. Like, I take issue with you saying that that is the primary generator of anti-Semitism. That them saying that is making people anti-Semitic. I take issue with that. I think that's untrue. I don't.
So onto the question of does anyone take that seriously? I think we can look at I think like American and UK politics. I can think of examples where this is like very straightforwardly the case. So within the Labour government, who was it? Oh God, I don't actually know UK politics. I just know like some of the bits of details.
Oh, if you're gonna
like
bring up a UK politics
it was
example,
like
I don't know. I can't respond to
there
that,
was
man.
some Labour Party PM who was removed, and there was all this questions about like Labour harboring massive levels of anti-Semitism because they had critiques of Israel or had pro-Palestinian sentiments, which I looked at what they were. They weren't anti-Semitic. There's you can have critiques of Israel that are anti-Semitic and critiques that aren't. The critiques that they had of Israel were like, capturing land in war is illegal. White phosphorus on civilian populations is illegal. Things like that.
But see,
of
this
those
is
nature are not anti-Semitic.
But this is
Beyond,
it's the reason I'm having trouble with this, right, is because we would never say that the reason that there's anti-Palestinian sentiment in America is that because people call any criticization of Hamas or Palestine Zionist. We would never say that, right?
Well, that doesn't make sense. Well,
but they do. Yeah, if you give any cover, any criticism of Palestine, you're called a Zionist. You are.
Oh, sure.
Does that make sense? Right? People will absolutely say you are a Zionist. You're just a Zionist, right? You're just an Israeli simp Zionist. But we wouldn't say that that's the cause or the generator or the exacerbator of anti-Palestinian sentiment. That would be silly.
I think to make it more of a parallel, it would be something like a generator of anti-Palestinian sentiment could be like, Islamophobic attitudes in the U.S., right? Surely there has to be some connection. So when 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 says Palestinians like to bomb shit and live in filth, or he said Arabs or something, but he meant to say Palestinians, something like that. Does that generate anti-Palestinian sentiment in ways that are not reasonable? I think it does. So something like that, I would call a generator of anti-Palestinian sentiment, because we don't have like a word for that. The way of anti-Semitism is like a generally anti-Jewish, but of anti-Palestinian sentiment, I would call 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 a generator of that.
So
because
anti-Muslim sentiment generates anti-Palestinian and anti-Muslim sentiment, but anti-Semitism is because of Israel saying that you're an anti-Semite if you disagree with them.
I strongly, as a Jewish person, believe when Israel explicitly sets up this situation where they say, and they do say, this isn't an idle threat that they say this, that when somebody criticizes them, they say that person's an anti-Semite. When people, I'm not saying people are dumb for playing into this, right? When you tell people on Twitch, not to use the N-word, and then they want to use it, they're obviously dumb, right? Like, they shouldn't play into that. But people who like tease a lot about these conversations, you could say that generates a feeling for people who want to say this. This is even stronger than that. When they're explicitly saying, if you criticize us as a state, you're an anti-Semite, there will be some dumb people who say, well, I'm going to say some anti-Semitic things then, because you're going to call me an anti-Semite either way. I'm not saying that's right. It's obviously wrong. But I do blame Israel, first of all, for saying something that's not true. It's not true that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. But a lot of people in American politics, just to limit it to our country.
Please, because I can't speak to UK.
Right, yeah. But do say, if somebody criticizes Israel, I see this all the time, the response is, you hate Jews, or you must hate Jews.
So let me explain
mostly,
something.
What we see more is kind of subjective.
So it's more complex than I think you're making this out to be, because I'll just give you my personal experience with this.
Okay.
Very recent. After I saw the horrors, the videos, the images coming out, and I expressed outrage, right? I think like any human would, like, oh my God, this is horrific. This is a tragedy. This is terrible. What is going on, right? I had people come into my replies, right? And then saying, well, why don't you blame Israel for this? Why are you even looking at this, right? Like this it does beg the question, right? And it does make me wonder, are they anti-Semitic at that point? Like, if that's the first thing you're doing after hundreds of Jewish people get killed, and you're coming into my replies to blame Israel for it, I do wonder if maybe there is, I know it's not true in all cases, but it does ring some alarm bells that, yeah, maybe you got a little anti-Semitism that you need to deal with, buddy, right? Like, maybe if that's your first reaction to a bunch of people being slaughtered is to blame them, maybe you got some biases you need to check into, right? Like, I can get criticism of Israel, absolutely, but let the bodies cool, my God, right? Like, so it does make me wonder and suspicious, and I think that there is. And I think there is evidence for this creeping anti-Semitism that is infiltrating the left. It's been on the right. It's full on display on the right, but we have let it seep into the left.
It's so funny because on the right, it's like anti-Semites who love Israel. It's a really,
it's a role reversal. It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
But you do see this kind of like creeping up on the left. It's not, and it's getting worse. And this is kind of been a mask off moment for a lot of people, right? Who, like I absolutely judge people who have responded to this. And like, for example, Aristocracy. You know who Aristocracy is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Aristocracy made a tweet when she saw a rally for like right after the event, like on the 7th. Okay, so like literally hours after all this stuff had come down, they had people waving Palestinian flags and trucks driving through Toronto, in the greater Toronto area, and things like waving their flags, honking their horns, woo, yay, grow. Like, she's like, yo, I feel unsafe here. People tried to paint her out as racist, as a Zionist, as all these things. Yeah, it does kind of make me wonder, right? If that's your response to someone saying, hey, I'm really scared right now. A lot of people that are like me just got massacred. And for you to call them racist, it does ring alarm bells in my head that maybe you have some unrecognized even anti-Semitism bias that you got to wrestle with here. I don't know.
I'm concerned about that rising element on the left. I've absolutely seen that. I can tell you, I was at a rally yesterday. It was Indigenous Peoples Day, so I kind of, and nobody there that I heard was explicitly like raw murder, something like that. If I'd heard that, obviously that would be kind of a different story. But more of a perspective of like, okay, Palestine, Israel is like in the news. Now's a good time to start, talking about. So there's kind of two perspectives. It's like, oh God, this just happened. Now it's going to be unsolvable. And at the same time, this just happened, and now it has to be solved, right? So international pressure has to come down unbelievably hard on the region to negotiate a ceasefire, to negotiate peace, to negotiate some normalization of relations and a real path to like some kind of lasting peace. At the same time where it's like most difficult to do, it's most necessary to put in the effort. What I can say is that when
this will be closing statements because I do got to go. But,
okay, perfect. Yeah.
Give me your closing thoughts on this, and I'll give mine, and we'll.
Yeah. So my closing statement is that when I see people have the knee-jerk reaction of, Israel had a hand in causing this, or whatever it is that people said to you in DMs, assuming they didn't literally just say, I hate Jews, whatever. If they said that, then they're probably.
Well, no, they didn't say that. But what they'll say is Israel's a monstrous state. Palestine what did you expect them to do, right?
What
Like
do you
things like
expect?
that, like as if the only option that Palestinians have is to go in and
Mhm.
massacre Jewish children. Like what?
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah. So I can say that just speaking personally, when I see statements like that, knee-jerk kind of immediate responses, or someone says, someone condemns the attacks, and then they're like, well, but what about this side? I don't get any twinge of anti-Semitism for that. Maybe because like I look out for it in general, and if I were to see it in places where there's another very clear motivation other than anti-Semitism, I'd probably defer to that just because, I'd be afraid of my own shadow if I were, anything that could be anti-Semitic. I took to maybe be that way. I'd probably be, even more paranoid. Um, I see that as a kind of to steelman that. There's a reason that this is in the news and in consciousness in a way that when the death tolls are reversed, it's not. And it is Palestinian children being killed, being
but
bombed,
that
being
reason's
raped, being
important.
murdered.
That reason's
Um,
important because I think we would disagree on the reason.
Sure. Yeah. I guess we would. But I think that's what I take it as people saying it in the same way that what was it? There were when the terror attacks happened in Paris, and then there were people in like Iraq or something maybe saying like, oh, see how it feels, something like that. I think it's a really crass response, but I don't think it's like a purely hateful response. I think it's like, hey, people have been bombing us and you haven't given a shit. Like, this kind of feels bad, man. I wish you could extend that empathy for people whose experience is more foreign to yours in this regard.
When I see people out on the street waving Israeli flags, cheering at what's happening in Gaza, I have that same reaction to
Yeah.
Whoa, bro, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Why are you
And
cheering?
that's wonderful that you have both reactions to, like you're the same reaction to
You're
both.
just
Like nobody should be
weird that
cheering
you excuse one, but you
nationalistically.
can
Yeah.
understand my reaction to
Yeah.
one, but the other one
Mhm.
you give all these reasons and excuses for, and man, I don't know, man.
Well, I can say that if anybody were waving a Palestinian flag and cheering like, yay, Hamas killed these people.
They were saying free Palestine, and
Well,
put out the victory symbol, right?
so
Right
that,
after, like hours after, right? This happened.
You could, I don't know, you could argue that they should, they should have like a few days of silence first or something. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that sentiment of free Palestine.
There's
And I
nothing
don't think
wrong
it's any
if
less true or any less like worth fighting for,
okay.
or maybe even more worth fighting. Like this conflict,
It ain't
more
what you
has
do.
to resolve now
It's the way that you do
than
it.
ever.
It ain't what you say. It's the way that you say it, right? You can absolutely rally in support of Palestine in a way that doesn't bring to mind that you're cheering it on.
I think if you're gonna have that rally, you should also condemn the attacks. Like I think if you don't combine those, I would take someone like
Did you
90%
see?
less seriously.
Yeah, did you see that politician in Colorado? I shared this video, right? 𝕬𝖎𝖙 responded to it, right, too, as
No,
well.
I probably haven't.
So basically, a man's interviewing a politician. This is a Colorado state politician, and he's at a Free Palestine rally. And he's like, "Well, do you condemn the violence?" And he asked him like 3 or 4 times. The dude couldn't answer, couldn't just say yes, right? He dodges, and at the end he says, "Oh, so." The guy who's interviewing him says, this should be a very easy thing. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm going to share this video." And the politician responds with, "Oh, so only 3 people are going to see your bullshit video." That's obviously not true, since 𝕬𝖎𝖙 had responded to me.
So
It's going to be a lot more than 3. He's good luck, whoever you are, right? I forget the name.
Someone has a statement like that, you just know it's gonna.
Yeah. And so this is not unique. It may not be the norm, but it's not unique, right? There are a segment of the left who, for whatever reason, has a really, really big problem with the simple thing: it was horrific that so many people died. I condemn it. That and that is it's breaking my brain, because I want to believe that people should have just the common sense to just say, even just on a strategic level, even if they don't care, right? Even just on a strategic optics level, to say, yeah, no, that's bad. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I generally assume that like the first 2 days after this, 99.9% of people saying anything are just gonna be dumb fucks. I want to be clear that when I'm talking about, you know, here's why I think somebody might be saying this. Here's where I think they're coming from this. It's at a level of like personal and psychological understanding. I can condemn the attacks, and I can say they're wrong. And I do, and I have. I streamed earlier in the day, and I said that. But I feel like the thing that we need more than, you know, somebody coming out on one side to condemn this, somebody coming out on the other side to condemn that, is for an understanding of where people are coming from and the psychology behind why would it be hard for somebody just to condemn this. I believe that it's because they don't have trust that when they condemn the Hamas attacks, the person they're talking to will speak out and condemn the Israeli response, or what Israel did beforehand that predicted this response, and and so on.
That's why.
Like,
that's why when these people came my DMs, I did a challenge. I'm like, I'll start, and then I condemned all the Israel stuff, settler colonialism. I just condemned it, and then I said, "Your turn." And the hesitancy still on display, right? Like, what?
Yeah.
It just confuses me. Though I like this comment in chat,
you're a better
right?
person than most of them.
Yeah, I like the comment in chat, right, that I'm seeing. Like the only good Free Palestine chant right now is Free Palestine, fuck Hamas. Free Palestine, fuck Hamas. Based, agreed, right? If they had come out and done that, different story, right? We'd have no clue. Like, it is on the onus of a protester to be condemning the atrocities of its own side. I think. I think that that is the onus. If you are out there and if you are chanting and cheering on your team, you need to be real with people and condemn the bad actors on your team. Not only because it's the right thing to do morally, but because it's the smart thing to do. If that's what's the chants that we, instead of the gas the Jews chants, if they had that chant in Australia, we would be having a different conversation, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, Socrates, thank you for coming by. It's
It was
nice
wonderful to chat
you.
with you, Wick. Yeah.
I'll
it was
let
so
you
good
go.
to see you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Gang, it's been a day. Yeah, a lot of people got mask off with this. A lot of people showing their true colors with this. It is what it is. Tomorrow I'm going to take off because I need to process and I need to prepare, because on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern we're going to have Counterpoints, we're going to have Dylan Burns, we're going to have Lonerbox, we're going to have Stardust, we're going to have Omar, we're going to have Counterpoints, and we're going to be talking, or Ali I should say, and we're going to be talking, because I said Counterpoints already, we're going to be talking about the Israel-Palestine situation. We're going to go through it. It's not going to be a meme panel, it's going to be serious. No costumes, no funny voices, none of that, right? Tune in, 6 p.m. Eastern. Gang, if you enjoyed this content, and if you like what I have to say, or even hate what I have to say, but like that I let you hate what I have to say, consider subbing to the channel. Hit that sub button. Hit that like button. Hit that follow button if you're on Kick or if you're on Twitch. Thank you again for all the support. I would really, really like it if you gave me more support, more money. It means I can do more of this, and I would like to do more of this. We need we need sanity in the wilderness of mental illness. Okay, that's what we need. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for coming. Give me money. I'll see you guys later. Who are we raiding into? Ice beans. Let's raid into ice beans. Oh, you know what? You guys want ice beans or Stardust? 1's in chat for ice beans. 2's in chat for Stardust. 1's for ice beans, 2 for Stardust. Come on. Come on, gang. 1's in chat for ice beans. 2's for Stardust. What we got? Give it to me. 2 for Stardust, 2 for Stardust. Any more? Come on, voters. 3? I don't know what 3 means. Okay. 3 means, I don't know. 3 means we raid into rando. Okay, let's do 2 for Stardust. Let's go to Stardust. remember when you get there to spam the emotes if you got them, and to let her know that this is a hate raid. Okay, let her know that this is a hate raid, and we are here to hate. And let her know you'll see her Thursday on my panel. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Bye.